Hey everybody, welcome back to the Backcountry Manifesto podcast, brought to you by the fine folks at Shared Pour. I'm your buddy out west, Hayden Samac, and today on the show, we got Boone here floating around. We have our buddy Casey Anderson. Casey is a lifelong outdoorsman, a lifelong outdoor videographer, nature filmmaker. You may have seen him hosting his shows on places like the Travel Channel or Discovery Channel. Particularly, he's interested in grizzly bears. You can find him on Instagram as Grizzly Guy. Famously, he is the adoptive father of Brutus the bear. And you probably spend more time in and around grizzly bears than in and around grizzly bears. In and around grizzly bear territory. That's for a different show. Than pretty much anybody else in the lower 48. Is that like reasonably fair to say? I'm not saying it's like perfect.
I think it's pretty fair to say. You know, I think there's a few folks out there that might be bear guides or something that,
sure,
you know, but I think in a diverse way, I'd say there's not a lot of people that have had as much grizzly bear time as I have. Yeah.
And that's in and out of the wild.
Yeah.
You also are a co-founder of Montana Grizzly Encounter, grizzly bear rescue.
Correct.
Super cool. I want to talk about that later. There are a couple of things that I want to hit on this podcast. One of the things is your history with bears, particularly Brutus the bear. I want to talk about people's feelings about grizzly bears, whether that's a very worried or very non-worried tourist, or, people who recreational opportunities bring them out into grizzly bear country and they might have feelings either way about it. And then, like the likelihood of having a confrontation, what one might do in that sort of confrontation. And then, I just want to kind of bullshit you about bears. That all sound pretty good.
I can do that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So as a wildlife photographer, outdoor filmmaker, describe how you got kind of started in this whole thing, just real briefly.
Yeah. I mean, basically being born in Montana, having a dad who was an outdoorsman, being out there since I could walk. I was always fascinated by the wild around me, and specifically the stuff that I didn't really know much about, the stuff that, you get the glimpse of the bear off in the distance or the mountain lion track. That always intrigued me. Or Bigfoot. Yeah. It was the stuff that I just wanted to know more about.
Sure.
And I was always that animal kid. I was the kid that had the rattlesnake for a pet. I caught a porcupine. I had a raccoon. It's like one of those things, like I just was the animal kid. And that's what I connected to. And, fortunately, I took my childhood dream and it just kept building and building. And here I am at 50 years old talking to you about what we're talking about.
How cool.
Yeah.
You're like
living the dream, man, for sure.
Well, yeah. And, we're going to get to what I think is like a total dream scenario for a lot of people. It's having a best friend that's a giant ass grizzly bear.
It could be a dream. It could be a nightmare. Yeah.
What kind of stuff were you primarily doing as a nature photographer and filmmaker?
I came here to Bozeman to study wildlife biology at MSU, but I was going to Yellowstone on my off time. And I'd meet people, guys from LA, guys from New York, who needed to make wildlife content, but they didn't know how to find it. They didn't have the legs to carry the gear to the top of the mountain. And soon enough, they're offering me money like, hey, dude, can you find grizzly bears and carry my 60-pound backpack? I'll give you $50 a day. And I was like, seriously? This is a real thing, And that's how it started.
Really?
And so I think, big predators specifically, people want to make shows about big predators.
Yeah.
And that's what I was focused on finding. And as a tracker, something I learned from my dad, I started honing it in on the animals that were going to make me money. So tracking wolves, tracking lions, tracking bears, and bears were always a big thing. And so, when you're on the landscape with a grizzly bear, they do demand your attention. And so no matter if you're tracking lions or wolves or other animals on the landscape, you're always interacting with these bears. They're always in the back of your mind. And I think that's really kind of it was the gravity to them for me early on.
Yeah, just kind of like the omnipresence. It's not really something that At least if you're like a smart, responsible person that you can forget about. You can afford to forget about them.
You can't forget about them. I mean, complacency in grizzly bear country is what gets you killed.
Well, right off at the top, let's like just cut to the chase a little bit here. Do you have any like, give me like a cool, like close encounter kind of story? I'm sure you got, I know you've got plenty of them.
I've got lots of them. I mean, I've probably been charged. I tried to figure this out the other day. I've been charged probably 7 times by a bear. In lower 48, if you account Alaska, I've probably been charged by 20 times.
Yeah. Are you like full ass charges or like bluff charges included?
Bluff charges included. Yeah.
I mean, I would just to be totally clear, I would also count a bluff charge for sure.
Yeah, and there's charge level. I mean, there's not like there's like a charge I'm going to kill you. There's a bluff charge, but there's a lot of gray area there too.
Sure.
There's bears that are coming to kill you and then they veer off at the last second because something that you've done that made them turn. I've bear sprayed probably 6 bears to stop them. So I've had plenty of encounters. I mean, I've had so many encounters where a bear's looking at me trying to make a decision about what it's going to do. And then I have to make a decision about what I'm going to do to mitigate that situation. And I've diffused that situation a lot of times. But the truth is, I mean, we're talking about thousands of encounters in my life. And we only have a handful of those. And then one we could dive into, which I've only one time I've had a bear look at me like it was going to eat me, where I was actually hunted by this bear.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, and it was in Yellowstone this time of year, probably 15 years ago.
Andrew canceled the Yellowstone trip. I'm just kidding.
And I was there to film bears predating on elk calves. This is a perfect time. The elk calves are just getting big enough where they try to run away, but they're slow enough the bear can still catch them. And so in that predator-prey dynamic in Yellowstone, it's one of the greatest things to film. And it's pretty predictable. You can go to the spots where cows are stashing their calves and go there and watch and just wait for a bear to come in. And what they do is they come in, they start doing this bird dogging. They kind of just go through the sagebrush and they're just trying to flush a calf. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they flush one, they chase it down and kill it.
When you talk about bird dogging, you're talking about going in a grid sort of system.
Totally grid.
And they're going through, I would imagine, big old sagebrush flats.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're going through the big sagebrush and they're just working back and forth through this grid. Mm-hmm. And those little calves are virtually scentless. So they're just literally trying to push them.
Yeah.
But they know they're in the area. They're smart enough to know that they're in the area, just like we know they're in that area. Because they see all the cows are over there without calves. Those calves have to be stashed here. So we're out watching for this and we see calves, or we see cows. We see a bear. We know it's going to start hunting calves. And so we just watch this bear. And it's way out, probably a mile. It's moving towards us. So we're on this little knob. We've got about a 25-mile-an-hour wind in our face. Perfect for bears because they can't smell us. And he's just working the grid, but the grid coming closer and closer. And in the topography, he would disappear behind these little rises and then pop back up again, but he'd keep getting closer and closer. Well, it got to this point where he looks over towards us and then starts walking in this like very defined straight line to us.
Yeah, and how far away is he when he notices you guys?
Probably a half mile at this point. Still a ways away. Like I'm looking at my binoculars and I can't see detail. Yeah. I could see that, but I can see he's looking in our direction and coming straight. So I figure,
you're like, oh, this is weird.
It's weird. Yeah. And I think it's weird. And but he's probably just going to go somewhere. We just happen to be in that straight line and disappears and then pops back up and disappears and pops up using the topography, he just disappears, but he's still coming straight. So about 400 yards, I look at him and I see that he looks skinny. It's a big male. It's about as big of a male that you get frame-wise in Yellowstone, except for he looks emaciated. I can see his hip bones. His mouth is gapped open. He's got this like foamy saliva along his face. I can see he's stressed out. And I remember looking at my camera guy. I go, dude, I do not like the look of that bear. And so he keeps coming. And he disappears again. Now he pops up 200 yards away. And I think to myself, I look at his face and his ears are kind of pricked forward. Like he's focusing. He's looking right at us. And I think, shit, like this is weird. So 100% of the time when you stand up and go, hey bear, I'm here, right here. I'm a human. Those bears just wheel and they're gone. Right. So I think can't smell us. We're not moving around. I'm going to stand up, do a jumping jack and say, hey bear, I'm right here. I'm right here. And I did. I'm right here, bear. I'm right here. As soon as I do that, he starts trotting towards us. And I just, what the heck? And then I say, he didn't hear me. what the heck?
You're
So
justifying it.
I jump up now. I'm screaming like, bear, dude, what are you? I'm yelling. I'm like, hey, bear, right here, right here. And the second time, he just goes full sprint. So he's 100 yards when he starts it. And I remember I have a bear spray in my hand, but that wind is just whipping right in our face. And I'm thinking, this is going to be terrible.
Yeah, I'm going to blind myself.
Yeah, I'm going to have to wait till he's from me to you way. So it's funny, everything slows down. And I remember having this like really clear thought that I'm going to reach down and grab my backpack. And when he's in throwing range, I'm going to throw it at him to try to get him hesitate a little bit so I can maybe get off the side of him with the bear spray.
Hit him.
And so everything, I mean, he goes like that. I grab the backpack over my head and I go to throw it. And as soon as I get over top of my head, he just locks the brakes up probably about 5 yards away. And so I see this behavior that I want him to be doing, and I just keep my behavior the same. I just hold that thing still over my head, and he just goes, this long groaning moan at us, and just looking right at us like this. And I just hold really still. And then he like does this like flinch towards us to try to get us to move. And I just we hold still, and I'm just like that. And so he just starts doing this moaning and same thing, and just starts kind of doing this like half circle around us and does these little flinches at us to try to get us to move. And we just hold our ground. I'm holding this backpack over my head.
You're like, I'm not putting this shit down.
I'm not going to change anything. So he does this. And I could see at this point, he's still focused. His ears are forward, it means a lot in bear language. Like angry, like defensive angry, ears are pinned. This is like,
curious.
If you're like dragging the mouse across the floor for your cat, like ears forward, or your dog, like ears forward, like predator. And it's just very strange. And he's just looking right through us. And so I hold that like that. I'm thinking, okay, I don't have my bear spray in my hand anymore because I have that backpack in my hand and the bear spray's on my hip with the safety trigger off. And I think, should I reach down and push the trigger? Because I could probably get him now. Mm-hmm. But I don't. And he just goes, same thing, just does a couple more of those like little flinches forward. It's about halfway around us, sits there for a second, and just walks straight away. My heart's pounding. And I look over at my buddy and he's got tears running down his face. Like, we just realized that we just dodged a massive bullet. And I didn't sleep for like 3 nights after that. Just trying to figure out what that bear was doing, And I really, now that I've thought about it and I've digested it and told the story a few times, that bear that day in desperation, there was no doubt he had crossed the line and saw us out there and thought, you know what? I'm tired of trying to catch elk. I'm old. He's an old bear. I could see that, especially when he was close. He was starving to death. And there was 2 big chunks of protein on the mountain out there that were going to be easy to catch. And he was going to go give it a shot. And one of them went from 5'11" to 6'5" all of a sudden and looked with a weird big head. And that was enough to stop him and make him think about it. But then he did those little lurches at us to try to get us to retreat, to be prey. But we didn't. We held our ground, and it was a game of chess, man. Like it literally, like if we would have panicked, we would have done anything else. That bear would have been on top of us like that. But it was just like, we're gonna play this game of space. I'm gonna be big. I'm not gonna be prey. And he's like, I'm gonna try to make you be prey. And then he gave up and went back. I'm sure he died not long after that. He was terrible looking. Like I said, those hip bones are sticking out. I could see his ribs through his fur. His fur was all mottled. His mouth was gaped open. His teeth were all wore down, almost flat. I had a long look at him. He probably was there for a minute and a half, which seemed like forever. So I guess point being, that's one in thousands of encounters that I've had. And I think people walk around the grizzly bear landscape thinking that bears are actively hunting people. It can happen. There's no doubt about it. I'm never going to tell you that it can't happen. It does happen. Bears eat people sometimes. So rare. You got a better chance of getting struck by lightning. Yeah. But that's not who they are. That's not what they're doing all the time. But you can't forget that they can, right? There's always that possibility. And it could happen again. I always remember that. It's like, it could happen again. But the honest truth, man, probably never going to happen.
Yeah. One of the really interesting things that you bring up in that description of that attack, or not attack, but like that encounter, is keeping your body language the same through it. Because I feel like what a lot of people have a tendency to do, and you see it all the time when you're watching like YouTube videos, is hey bear, hey bear, hey bear.
Yeah.
And then they go back to like normal. And it's like, I never, geez, that's a lot of dog hair floating around. I never really considered, the kind of keep finding something that works and like sticking with it.
Yeah.
Rather than like, I feel like people have a tendency to kind of use it as like, okay, stop. Now I'm like good for a second. And for whatever reason, it's a natural instinct to switch it up. Is that something that you kind of...
Well, I think it's just to be able to understand what they're doing. I mean, you are actively communicating with that animal through body language all the time, every second, right? And this is something, again, we'll dive into it, but raising a bear, I did all the time. I was playing that game. I was dancing the dance all the time. So I became very good at reading body language. And then when I wasn't raising a bear, I was actively trying to find him and sneak up on him in the wild and get as close as I can to film him. So I'm always playing that game. So when that moment came, I wasn't second guessing what that bear was telling me or what his intentions were. I knew no doubt what it was.
You knew the rules.
Yeah. And I knew what I had to do in that moment. And I was confident in it enough that I just did it and held to it, right? Because I think most people just don't know, right? And so first thing people mostly do is panic, right? Which is terrible in any case, whether it's the wild or not, but particularly terrible in the wild. If anybody would have been in that situation and panicked, they'd have got eaten. There's no doubt about it. That's what that bear wanted, is a panic.
They wanted you to reveal yourself as a prey item.
Totally. 100%. And if you watch other predators in nature interact with prey, that's exactly what they want all the time. They want the animal to panic. And because panic causes weakness and mistakes equal trip up and you're dead. Mm-hmm. So it's this game. And I think with bear encounters, I think one of the most important thing when you do go into bear country or any country that you might interact with a predator is having confidence in that language and trying to at least learn the basic steps, right? Understand, and most people know this just because they have pets that are once were really predators, right? There are some very basic things you can learn, and confidence is everything. When you're out there and you're trying to communicate, again, it's like, it sounds foo-foo-y, but communicating with animals, but no, body language is something that they do with each other all the time, with interspecies, with people all the time. Things like eye contact, things like posture, things like taking steps backwards and taking steps forward means a lot in the animal world, and being able to understand that will help you better navigate it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like the way that you communicate with like the dog. Like,
100%.
I'm sitting there having lunch and the dog, comes over being like, hey, can I have some of that lunch? And to be totally honest, most of the time I give it to him. Not the whole thing, just a little bit. And, but when I'm like done with that, I go lie down and I like stare into his soul.
Well, you just did with your face right there.
Yeah.
You opened your eyes wide.
Yeah, go lie down.
This.
Yep.
Yep. And
they know exactly what that means.
The dog doesn't understand English.
But he understands that.
Yeah. And you just did with your face. And so very similarly, you can do so much with the bear and in nature and so many different animals, exactly what you just did. Like sometimes I just mess with my dogs. You ever just like, they're sitting there and you just stare at them in the eyes and they're like, creep up on them like you're stalking them.
Yeah.
They freaks them out, right?
Well, and I'll tell you the other thing, Boone right here, the nicest, most mellow dog that there has ever been. How could you not, right? We have a kitchen island there. And sometimes I'll like start doing the thing where I'll run to one side of it and I'll like go like this. And he just loses his mind. Dude, he'll like start running and chasing me. And when I let him catch me, he like mouths my arm. Like he'll go, "Arr!" He'll make a crazy ass noise and like mouth on my arm. And it really is interesting how, and that's the only time that he ever gets like that.
You're tickling his inner predator.
Yeah.
It's fun for him. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, and he understands it as playtime, but he thinks it's time to play rough.
Yeah.
So you would, not only through your experience in the wild, but you've had occasion to learn a lot of this, or you kind of had your own sort of test subject in, teaching you all this, or a teacher, right?
Yeah.
That being Brutus the bear.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about like how did it start? How did it start? Yeah, that's
so being a filmmaker is.
Because you were on like, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you were on like Oprah and shit talking about this.
Yeah.
What's Oprah like?
It's great. She's great.
She's super nice.
You're a better interviewer than she is.
No, stop.
No, you're not. I'm just blowing smoke up.
I got all excited, man. I was like, dude, clip that.
You're at least equal so far.
Well,
yeah.
I don't have a free car to give everybody in the
Not
audience,
yet.
which is just Andrew, actually, but
Not yet. So as a filmmaker, and you played in the game of entertainment, I guess, for a while. It's feast or famine, right? So there's these. In the off time, I would volunteer to work at wildlife parks or whatever as a consultant, particularly with big predators because I knew stuff about them. So I came across this wildlife park in Idaho that had a lot of bears, and they were just interested in bears, but the people that owned it didn't know anything about bears. So they brought me on as a consultant to help with that. So I did that on and off for a while, and then eventually they had this bunch of bear cubs that were born there, and they had a policy that necessarily I didn't agree with at the time, completely illegal. They mate their bears. They have cubs. Cubs were a huge attraction, right? People love cubs. But then after the cubs got old, like teenage bears, people don't want to see teenage bears. They want to see a big adult bear or a tiny little cute cub. So instead of just feeding the teenage bear and having that expense, they would just euthanize them and start over again.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's very common in the captive world.
Stop it.
Oh, terrible. Happens all the time. And they call it surplusing, and it's completely illegal to do. And so that was going to happen with these bears. And I was like, I can't be part of this place anymore. And I'm 26 years old at the time. And I think to myself, I'm going to rescue this bear and raise it. Like, I'm going to try to find, instead of trying to find it a place, I'm going to create a place for it. And that's what I did. And which is crazy in retrospect. At 26, you think you're damn smart, but you look back and you're like, what the hell was I thinking? Right.
Yeah.
And I had been around bears in captivity a little bit, but I certainly wasn't an expert of how to raise a bear. I never raised a bear before. And there's not books that teach you how to raise bears, so, and it was also at a time where, kind of Tiger King-y, like you could just.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, man, what you just described sounds like Bear King to me.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And so much of that was so much more of it back then. Regulations now have kind of made those places go away, thankfully.
I'd hope so. Yeah.
But still the laws were so lenient that a 26-year-old kid could get a bear. And, I had enough experience that I could fudge my way through it a little bit. And that's what I did. And then I had this idea. I mean, it's like, I know I'd been in the business enough that I knew there was a lot of other bears like that couldn't go back into the wild, that needed a place to go. And that's how I started Montana Grizzly Encounter. It's like, let's rescue these bears and give them a place to live. And then what not a better place, like at the fringe of Yellowstone, where there's a bunch of people that are moving there or traveling there that don't know anything about bears. People can come see these bears. We'll try to keep them as happy as we can in captivity and teach people something. It was like a kill two birds with one stone, for lack of a better way of putting it. But then you have this little bear that you have to bottle feed and everything. And
darn.
Yeah. And you do it. And then,
fun.
It's like you fall in love with the bear falls in love with you, and it's growing so fast and everything. And you're like, what am I going to do? And then, next thing you know, he's 800 pounds and, you're wrestling around with him and playing high five and riding him like a horse. And he loves it. That's the thing. It's why you're doing it, and it's, I mean, that's how it happened. And then and simultaneously, which is cool, then, I'd get there was years where I would go film grizzly bears all day long, and I would come home to a grizzly bear.
You'd be like, yo, your people say, hey.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, as far as learning about bears, out there actively tracking them, interacting with them, filming, and then coming home and spending my off time interacting, learning body language, raising this bear. And then that's how a lot of my first big thing on America the Wild was born. It's like, how about this? Like, let's go out and film grizzly bears. And this is exactly what one of my first pitches was. We'll go out there and film grizzly bears, flipping rocks over and looking for moths up on the high country, right? Then we'll come back and we'll put in perspective that strength. We'll weigh some boulders and see how big a boulder he can roll over and make it kind of edutaining, right? In parallel. And that's what we did. And people loved it, and Brutus loved it. That was the most important thing. I was like, I never made him do anything he didn't want to do. He loved that. Like, that stuff was like, pull the leash off. Your dog knows you're going to go for a walk. He gets all excited like crazy. I mean, every time I would come in there and I pulled a trailer up like we're going to take him somewhere, he knew it. He'd get so excited because he knew he was going to go get challenged to go do something cool.
What does an excited grizzly bear look like?
I mean, exactly like an excited dog.
Really?
You know, yeah, it just gets amped up. Yeah. And he wants to go. And it was funny because like people said, "Hey, get him loading that trailer." I just opened it up. He just would pile in there like, we're going. Yeah. And it was cool. I mean, even back then too, the laws were lenient. I would literally drive right across the road to a big ranch. We'd go back out in the mountains there and we just go film, and he'd run around and be a bear and go swim in the creek and do whatever he wanted to.
Hold on a second. You just like let this bear just like in the same way that I would take Boone here for a WALK. Like,
he didn't want to. It says one thing about raising a bear from a cub, and you gotta understand. Again, I've developed into probably, I wouldn't say anti-captive wildlife, but pretty close.
Yeah. It has utility. It has utility, particularly if it's a rescued animal that's like not going to do well otherwise. But in a perfect world, people would just be empathetic and interested in animals without having to have any captive ones.
Yeah, no, exactly. And bears, particularly in captivity, are relatively easy to keep happy because the key to a bear's heart is its stomach. And if you keep them fed and they feel secure, they love it. In fact, if you went over to Montana Grizzly Encounter right now and opened the gates up, those bears they'd be terrified at the outside. Like they just like, there's everything I need is right inside here. And I have friends that are the same way. Like they just want to play video games and they want to eat pizza and they don't outside, scary place. And so when you take a bear at a ranch like that, like I can remember when Brutus was probably 2 years old, he's 500 pounds, 400 pounds, big bear.
So what were you doing at this point in time? This is pre-America the Wild?
Yeah, 50-50. I'd say I was out filming on these other contracts, working with other people, and then coming back and building Montana Grizzly Encounter and raising Brutus.
I have to imagine that on any one of these shoots, like at some point, one person says to another, "You know what's real cool about Casey? Guess what he has at home?"
Oh yeah, and I was single then too, and that was really good for the.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So yeah, no, it was a good times for sure.
Okay, so Brutus is two years old, 500 pounds.
Yeah, so I was going to tell you this. So out on the ranch running this input perspective of like why it wasn't that terrifying to have him loose like that. So he goes over the hill and all of a sudden he comes just running back and he's hoofing real upset and just runs over and wraps his paws around me and he's terrified. And I'm thinking, what scared him, right? So we walk up together and he's just pinned against my leg like they do with their moms. You see cubs in the wild, right? But he's a big bear now. And we come over the top and there's a turkey. And he's just, when he saw that thing, he just is terrified and he ran right to me. So when we were in the wild with him, we're out walking around, he was always just like, he was always in earshot at least of you, but definitely knew where you were. And he would never go any farther because it was a scary place to him. He didn't grow up. He didn't have a mom that taught him everything in the wild like they do in the wild, right? A mother grizzly has their cubs for 2 to 3 years. And in that time, they teach everything, how to eat, how to achieve that stuff to eat, how to interact with other animals, all of that. That's all taught. And if you don't have that mom that teaches you that, and he never did, it's all scary. And his world was our world, and that's where he wanted to be.
What? When you have a 500-pound grizzly bear running at you, is your immediate thought, oh, this is a scared bear and he's coming to, or is there part of you that's like, I wonder if this bear's about to fuck me up right now? No,
I mean, again, back to the body language. At that point, I could hear he was hoofing. I could see it on his face. He was scared. His ears were pinned back like he was listening behind him. Yeah, no doubt. I knew what he was coming for.
How big did Brutus end up getting?
Got over 800 pounds. Yeah, I think when he was chubbiest, he was about 900 pounds. Yeah, 8.5 feet tall.
I mean, that is like a lot of people when they think about grizzly bears in the wild, they have this idea that all of the grizzly bears are like 900 pounds and like, real big. A lot of them are much bigger than other black bears,
Correct. Yeah.
It's just like they look like to me, like a grizzly bear, like kind of has like a badgery kind of quality to it.
Yeah.
But at any rate, what is the average size grizzly bear in, just take the greater Yellowstone ecosystem?
Yeah, a big female is 300 pounds.
Yeah.
I'd say our average female is probably between 250, 300 pounds. I mean, they can be a little bit bigger than that. A big male, 400 to 500 pounds. Like a really big male is 500 pounds. Now, there are 700-pound bears in the ecosystem. They're giants, and few and far between. So that's your range in there is like, 300-pound bear. If you say 300 pounds, you're looking at a bear, you're probably within 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Brutus, how long did you have Brutus for?
He lived to be just over 19. So almost 20 years. Yeah. And then, it looked like arthritis a little bit in his hips. And we took him in to get some imaging done to see what was going on. And in order to put him with a giant MRI machine, you had to, sedate him. And he didn't come out of sedation. And it was one of those risks you take every time you sedate anything. And it was not what we expected. It was kind of a shocker. But that was, a bear in captivity can live to be 40, 35.
Really?
Yeah. So he had a lot of years left in him.
What? Did he ever do any, was he in movies and stuff? Did he ever do
little
any
movies?
Sort of
yeah, we didn't do a whole lot of that because it was just, that's how you get in trouble. It's like when you do movie stuff.
You try to get him to do something. They don't want to do it. You push a little bit more than you otherwise would have, and then the bear has an accident.
Exactly. Yeah. So we didn't do a lot. There's a few things you might see him here and there, but nothing in the big ones.
Yeah. No gentle Ben.
Nope.
I want to know more about, why don't you tell me some good Brutus stories?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's one thing that's cool about Brutus and having that encounter with him is just that, and we can talk about it because Boone's here because it makes sense, is that bears are like dogs.
Yeah.
They all have their own personalities.
Yeah.
Your two dogs are not the same at all. No. Right? And two bears are not the same. And I think that when you're around animals in those kind of settings I was with Brutus, you get to see those personalities, I use that term, really shine. Mm-hmm. And then when you go out in the wild, it opens up your eyes enough to look and say, oh, maybe these aren't, a bear is just not a bear, and this is not a bear. They're all a product of the recipe of their life, right? They all act different. They all have different personality types. And so it makes the wild super dynamic, I think, when you look at it that way. And he gave me a lot of that. I think that, seeing a bear, he was one of the coolest bears. And I've been around other bears in captivity, and they're not all cool. So forgiving. One of my favorite stories to tell, haven't told this one a whole lot, is that we're on one of these ranches. Uh-huh. And he's walking around. I'm actually talking to the gal who directs it now, who helped raise him. We're just sitting there talking, and Brutus is walking around, and I look down and...
Who directs what now?
The Montana Grizzly Encounter. Okay. And I look down, and Brutus is just like kind of catatonic and just sitting there really still. So I'm watching him because the body language is weird. I'm thinking, what's going on? And is he looking at something? And it didn't seem like it, whatever. So I watch him a little bit longer, and then I'm like, I got to go see what's going on because he just hasn't moved in the last 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I walk down there, and he just kind of looks at me. He's just holding really still. He looks at me really weird, like kind of like he's not going to move at all. Just kind of turns his head really subtly and looks to the corner of his eyes. And I'm like, what's going on, buddy? Like, what's happening? And so he lifts his leg up like he's going to take a pee like a dog. Yeah. And somehow as he's walking around in the willows down there, he got this piece of rusty barbed wire wrapped around his nuts. And it's literally wrapped around his nuts. And he just lifts his leg up like this and just like looks at me like, help. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I get it, man. And I reach in there and I remember thinking like at the time, like, like MacGyver or something, like, don't cut the wrong wire. The bomb's going to go off. Right. And that's the same thing. I'm just like, I'm being real gentle and untangling this wire off of him. And he just let me do it. And after I did that, I thought, man, like the trust that bear had, and like, he knew exactly like, this is the dude who's going to get me out of this. And please, he just sat there and was waiting for me to come down. As soon as I got down there, he's like, there was no doubt, like, come on, dude, help me out here. Yeah, and I did. Like... And it was like, and so things like that are just, again, most people would think a grizzly bear's not capable of that kind of gentleness and thought.
Sure.
They totally are. And they're super emotional. They're super intelligent. But they're also, they got 5 steak knives on each paw and canines that are 3 inches long, and they are super strong and can destroy you in 1 second. And that's the truth of them. You know, it's like, I think that's what's so cool about that animal is that they are super adaptive. They're super smart. You can run into a bear as having a good day. You can run into a bear as a bad day. They're always going to try to be getting themselves out of trouble. They don't want trouble. But they are capable of destroying us immediately if they want to. And that's the animal we're dealing with out there. And can they? Yes. Do they? Yes. But most of the time they don't. And most of the time they're trying to figure out how to get out of these problems. And yeah, they're not going to, not a bear out there in the wild is not going to let you do that. What I did with Brutus that time. But I think what it taught me is that they're dynamic. They're thoughtful. And if you give them an opportunity, they're going to take it and they're going to go the right way. Yeah, I don't know. It really opened my eyes up about bears in general.
Was there ever a time that Brutus made you feel like something might go real sideways?
No, anytime I saw Brutus like getting grumpy or felt annoyed or
you
whatever,
were just like, that's enough.
I'm out. Yeah.
Was that ever hard to do?
What do you mean?
Like, being like, okay, well, the pertinent thing would be to end my interaction with this bear that I clearly love to interact with.
It was never hard because, the stakes are so high.
Yeah, I guess so. Huh?
You could try to be macho and you're just going to get your head ripped off.
Yeah. So anyway, I cut you off. You said there was this one time.
Oh, there was one time. That he's ever hurt me is that he just rolled over on top of me. And the other thing is like, if we were wrestling around, I would just say, stop. And he would get up. He knew that was bad. Right. And, he never wanted to hear that from me.
Yeah.
And that came from him being little. It's like elephant on the string theory, kind of like, he always thought I was stronger than him.
Really?
Oh yeah. And I was all more of like me just going, if I roared at him or growled at him, he knew that was enough. But if I couldn't and he got on top of me, then, I got 800 pounds on top of me and no air in my lungs and I can't tell him to get off. And those were the only times that were scary, but he wasn't being aggressive. He was just licking my face or something and crushing the air out of me, and that's why I never really did that without anybody around.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you normally have a spotter when you were kicking it with him?
Yeah, definitely. Not always, but most of the time. Yeah.
What's it like wrestling with a grizzly bear?
It hurts. Yeah. There was a time, before he died, I quit doing it because I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, just too big.
Yeah, when I was in my 20s and early 30s, like I could hang for a little bit, but yeah, just like riding a bull after a while, you just don't ride a bull anymore because you just don't walk after playing with them for too long because you're just sore. And yeah.
When did Brutus die?
3 years ago.
You miss him?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's times I see like a video. I just saw one the other day, just a little video of him that popped up on TV randomly. And yeah, there will never be a bear like him. Yeah. And I'll never have a relationship like that ever again.
Yeah, that's kind of the. I hesitate to use pet, but like that's kind of the double-edged sword of being close to an animal like that. It's like you only get relationships like that one time, but then afterwards, it's like, well, and you learn to love things in like different ways, but it's never the same.
Never, no.
Yeah, there's never going to be another Boone.
There won't be.
But it's nice to have some time with him for sure, right?
Oh yeah, no, I learned so much from it. And let's be honest, like, everybody saw a guy and a grizzly bear. That's what gave me a platform.
Sure.
That's what got me famous, for lack of a better term. And then in that, it's how my rest of my career took off. And I'm grateful for that too. It was this stupid 26-year-old kid that found himself in a weird spot and this little bear cub came along and somehow we made it through his lifespan. Everybody thought that was going to be the next guy to get eaten. I heard it every day and I just had responsibility of trying to make sure that didn't happen. Try to do it as right as I could, it's a weird thing. It's like one of those things I look back on. Would I do it again? Probably not. But I don't regret it at all.
No, and it seems like, despite people's, predictions, it's just like what you said with the movie stuff. That's where people get like scratched up, I guess, by their bears. And this isn't me being like, and if you don't do movies, you'll be able to have a grizzly bear too. That's not at all what I'm getting at. But, having that restraint and being like, I'm sure that you were offered a bunch of money a bunch of different times to like, oh, can you have that bear? Like, come do this. We need
Totally.
it's just like, no,
totally.
I can't because I don't want to get hurt by it. I don't want something bad to happen that results in bad things having to happen to that bear.
And I had circumstances too where we did things and then like the director said, hey, we're going to do this. I'm like, and I said, nah. And then like they'd push back like, no, you need to do that. I remember one time it was in Denver actually. And Brutus was getting getting nervous. I could see it. I'm like, we're done. Right. And the director said, we can't be done. Like, and I'm like, no, we're going to be done. And I remember I took the leash I had Brutus on. I go, here, then you do it. And he looked at me and he was this big tough guy. And he's like, well, whatever. I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not stupid. Yeah. Yeah. Just, I played it smart and I got lucky at some level, I guess. And, the truth is, the moral of the story is, I hope that Montana Grizzly Encounter goes extinct, that it doesn't have to exist. I hope that there's no more bears that go there. And that's kind of what my mission is now, is just to make that happen. Because the reason those bears are there usually is because people go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we'll move over to that because I do want to talk about particularly the conversation surrounding delisting grizzly bears and kind of the nuances of that. And this is something we talked to. If you guys want to check out episode, what is it, 4, 5, 6? No, I think it's episode 7. There's an episode with our friend of the show, Rudy Norlander, where he recounts his bear attack in Big Sky in September 2023. We talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about later in that one. It's a really interesting episode. Rudy's a great guy, and the story's pretty harrowing, man. Have you ever met Rudy?
No.
Really nice guy. Really crazy story.
Yeah, I would love to meet him.
Yeah, I can hook you guys up.
Please.
But I want to talk about the conservation issues surrounding grizzly bears. But before we get there, what's some of the stuff that you've been doing lately? So that's how you interact with those grizzly bears or with that grizzly bear in one part of your life. Today, you interact with grizzly bears in a totally different sense. Could you describe kind of what your average work day is like?
Average work day, we just, I wake up and go, what I want to go do for fun and to film today.
Yeah.
And and then go out and track grizzly bears, try to film them in the wild, interact with them at some level, all over the world. I just was in Himalayas filming Himalayan brown bears earlier this spring, and snow leopards. And then, I'm going to be in Alaska again filming brown bears, and I'll be in the backyard here in Yellowstone filming bears all summer long. So a lot of bears, man, that's for sure. But everything else in between too, mountain lions and, like I said, snow leopards and tigers and things all over the world. So that's my day to day right now, is filming things all over the world. It's predators mostly.
Yeah. And is it just that they're so giant and charismatic and kind of gnarly? Is that just the thing about them?
I don't, it's funny. It's not so much, I'm obviously fascinated with them, but audiences are definitely fascinated with them. If I look at my YouTube channel right now and I look at big predators, they always get the most likes and ticks and watches, man, every time. People love that stuff. I think that it's also the animal people hate the most too. So from a storyteller and a conservationist, I find that they're the ones that need their story told the most. And so, again, it's always trying to find the truth, because let's look at most big predators are the animals, or the people, the animals that people resist the most or fear the most, right? And most of that fear comes from lack of understanding. So if we can go out and shine a light on the monster under the bed, so to speak, and show facts, let people make their own decision, now they have some actual knowledge to make decisions off of. If you don't know anything about these animals, your instinct is to be afraid of them. And if you're afraid of them, then you're going to make decisions about them that is not in favor of them. So I think that's a big responsibility for me now, is because fortunately, I know how to find them. I know how to interact with them, and I know how to tell their story. And most people try to avoid them. There's not a lot of people out there trying to tell their story. And so I find a lot of responsibility in that. So that's what I've been doing.
So, edutainment.
Edutainment.
It's funny. I feel like the way that people interact with grizzly bears is a lot like the way that people interact with politics. I feel if your attitude is way, way, way on the scared of them spectrum, or if your attitude is way, way, way on the I'm not scared of them at all without like, I would say that you probably have a healthy fear of them.
Sure,
you understand their capabilities, and you understand like when one's pissed off, that's a very scary critter. But I think that it's like, people on the right and people on the left, it's like there's no sort of, if you're either on one of those two sides, totally petrified or like totally unafraid, are we making real good decisions? Are we capable of making real good decisions? It's like, probably not.
No, and they're the loud ones too on each end of the spectrum. I have nicknames I've given them. I call them the Moonbeams and the Jethros.
Yeah.
And it's, and every time I listen to them at any wildlife commission meeting or whatever, they're the ones who are just, I'm like, where do you live? Like, they don't get it.
Yeah.
And you're right. The truth is somewhere in the middle. And that's the truth I'm always trying to tell. I've seen the worst of both sides. I mean, I've carried a man off a mountain and was killed by a grizzly bear. I spent 4 hours with him picking grizzly bear hairs out of his wounds of his face. I know what a bear can do. I've watched a bear attack somebody. I've seen bears kill other bears. I've seen bears do terrible things, and they are capable of doing it. And then I've been in Alaska, the place like Great Treadwell was, right? And there's bears that walk right up to you, feet away from you. And there's moments there when you spend months with them, you think, I could probably pet this bear and it wouldn't care. Should you know. But our bears, those are the opposite ends. There's the foo-foo-y and the kill everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth's in the middle. And I think that's what I'm always trying to teach people. Because, again, the people who are making decisions about the policies and the management of these animals are either one of these two sides. And the pendulum swings depending on whatever the administration's in.
Well, you know what? Like, I do feel that way a lot of the times on high level stuff. But like, I also executives, governors, for instance. On the flip side, I feel like if you talk to the people who are really involved, folks like you, folks like some of our game warden buddies, folks like my buddy Aiden Beers, he's a biologist. We just had him on, 2 weeks ago, I guess, at the point that this comes out. He's the one who went out and hazed the bears in Katmai.
Mm-hmm.
You do find a lot of really balanced perspectives. But yeah, it seems like when it comes to people charged with making the statements to the general public, or in a position where they have to take a stance, particularly politically, it's like fucking, I think it might've been Steve Daines who said this, where we have the public land thing going on right now. Yeah. Where, and if you guys aren't hip to it, I'm not really sure how that could possibly be, but in order to balance the budget a little bit, as Randy Newberg put it, people are suggesting that we sell a bunch of assets, that being public land, in order to rectify things as part of Trump's big, beautiful bill. And however you feel about that, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying this is what's happening. And Steve Daines, who is a Montana legislator, he has been a kind of, I don't think he's taken an active stance on it necessarily, because it's not land in Montana, it's everywhere else, but he's an important vote in the context of this. So he was asked about it the other day, and he just switched the topic to delisting grizzly bears.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking weird. Can we, are we able to get those clips? I think we should be able to. If you can find out who it is, Andrew, I'm pretty sure it's Steve Daines. I would type in legislature talks about grizzly bears and then do land sell off and see what happens.
So you deflected and then try to go some route that you knew you could get everybody all fired up about.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. If you type in politician deflected, man, you're never going to get through that.
So true. No, I mean, public lands thing. That it's part of the bigger picture right now, man, this is something I'm really starting to get behind, is just, I'm going to call it a taming of the West. It's happening, man. It's, whether it's still enough public lands or a war on predators that's unproportionate, disproportionate. Yeah, it's crazy. And in the state of Montana, it's one of those things where I'm really hammering about it. It's just like, grizzly bears, mountain lions, wolves, public lands, river access, all these things that have made Montana different than everywhere else, that makes Montana amazing. Those are they're all being attacked right now. And it's crazy. It's, and we got to draw the line, and it's for all of them, man. It's just like, if you don't want grizzly bears, there's Colorado, lots of elk, man, lots of mountains. Go there.
You got to remember, man, those 10 wolves are everything up now.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it's one of those things. Like, I mean, predators, I understand. Should they be managed? Sure, they should be managed. We live in a world right now that everything needs to be managed. Do they need to be eliminated out the face of the earth? It's basically just domesticating the state. Yeah. Should we figure a way that we can live with them and have them around and keep Montana? That's what we should be doing. It's a gift. It's amazing. And that's it. I mean, I feel like right now there's everybody else's priorities, and everybody who's speaking anyway and voting in official capacity, they're trying to tame it, man. And for what? Usually money. You follow the paper.
Oh, well, for sure. I mean, the less predators that you have, the more sheep that you can put, out there on these chunks of lands. The more the more people who come and spend their money to, various avenues of tourism in really concrete ways. You could have a bunch of grizzly bears running around Yellowstone National Park, and the tourists will come and they'll spend $35 at the gate to go see it, right? Or you could have somebody come in who's, comfortable spending $1,400 on an out-of-state, mule deer elk combination license, but doesn't want to see any grizzly bears.
I know, and I mean, I get it, but here's the thing, man, and I have to, again, the whole preamble to this is, I'm not anti-predator hunting. I'm not at all. I think if there's a population of predators, it needs to be kept in check. But ultimately, what we need to be striving for is healthy ecosystems, because all stakeholders thrive in that situation. There's plenty of people who say there's too many wolves in the landscape. The elk are all gone. It's not like it was in the 90s. Well, yeah, in the 90s, Fat Joe could shoot a 6-point bull off the side of the road, right? But it wasn't healthy. It was great for the people selling Fat Joe a tag and giving him a horse to ride and a place to stay. And Fat Joe would come back every year. I get it, but it's not a healthy ecosystem. Now, are there maybe too many wolves? Is the elk population down right now? Maybe, yeah. Should we manage those wolves and get that population up a little bit where it needs to be? Yes. Same with grizzly bears. I mean, I had a best friend who was a bear. A lot of people will look at me and go, you're probably going to be anti-hunting grizzly bears. If we get to the point that we can take that bear off the endangered species list because the science is there and it says there's enough bears to take them off the list, that's a good thing, right? If we even take it one step further and we know that we have a sustainable population that's getting to the actual point that it can be hunted and should be hunted because it's making everything out of balance, that's a really good place to be, right? And if that's the way we need to manage them, we need to think about it long and hard and make that decision. But it should be based on statistics, science, and made by people that have the ecosystem health in check, not whether you're going to make money from being an outfitter or make money from seeing grizzly bears in Yellowstone. Emotion needs to stay out of wildlife policy. It's just the bottom line. I mean, emotion in politics, man, get rid of it. Scientists, biologists who know what the hell they're talking about, making unbiased decisions, maybe as a committee, with the ecosystem in mind, man. And I think that, to me, that's a no-brainer. Because again, everybody thrives in that. And, you know, I don't know. It's going to be hard. But just to back up on that a little bit, it's like fear-based management, man. And I'll tell you what, it's happening like crazy right now.
Yeah.
And I know you've heard this, and this is big time in our hunting community. And it makes me shake my head because it's not the reason why when people say we need to hunt these bears because they're not afraid of people anymore.
Dude, that is the most, it's like, so what? You're going to like shoot one grizzly bear and then all the grizzly bears are going to tell each other like, yo, just so you know.
Joe just died. Yeah.
And like we got to stay away from humans now. That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And people say it all the time. Or, you know, I hear people say there's just too many grizzly bears out there. What does that mean? Because you've seen one and you didn't see one when you were a kid? Or you've seen two and you didn't see them? Because you have to worry about it when you're gutting out your elk? Dude, go to the big belts. There's no grizzly bears there. There's a lot of elk. Yeah, there might be. Yeah. But the bottom line is, it's just like, it drives me crazy because it's like they want to manage the bear out of fear because they're scared. I mean, let's be honest. This has got me on a soapbox here now. The 7th bear was just shot in Montana this year. The 7th grizzly bear was shot.
Oh, like in one season?
Since 2025. Yeah,
and maybe just for because this is probably like some of the most we've ever talked about hunting on the podcast. And, you know, it's interesting because like I do a lot of hunting, but when we say to your listener / viewer that the 7th grizzly bear was shot this season, we don't mean as part of a hunting season.
Right. So this has been the highest number of bears killed in self-defense ever this quickly. And it's crazy. It's let's be honest, the hunting season for grizzly bears has already begun. I mean, 7 of them have been shot. And if you've ever been around a bear or you've ever been charged by a bear, I've interviewed 20 people that have been attacked by bears. To be able to pull out a handgun and shoot a bear and kill it is very difficult.
Oh my gosh.
And for 7 of those circumstances to happen in Montana, and I've seen the guys, and again, I will never say like, don't defend yourself. I don't ever say that. I think everybody has the right to defend themselves.
But if like 1 in 10 people are successful, right? And say like all of those remaining 9 had discharged a firearm at bears, right?
Yeah.
Well, that stands to reason that 7 where the bears have been shot and killed is representative of something more like 70 really intense contacts.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's what's happening. And I know this is the truth. The people who've done it know it's the truth. That's not the story they're telling anybody, but they encounter a bear. They're afraid of it and they shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
The bear had likely never had any intention of doing anything. It's close range. They see a bear, they shoot it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some of these guys. I know they're not Jesse James. I'm surprised they're even that far in the backcountry by looking at their physical fitness. And there's no way that they had a bear charging them full tilt and they leveled that thing and shot it in the head. There's no way.
Yeah. You're talking about people that just get freaked out at 20 yards away and being like,
yeah, they see a bear and they shoot it. And this is what's happening right now. And the more it happens, the more people they feel like, okay, well, this is what we can do. You know, if you see a bear, you're afraid that you can defend themselves with a firearm, and they do it, and they're killing them like crazy right now. And I don't know. I think it's just it just shows how afraid everybody is, how much they don't understand when they're around grizzly bears. And it's a bad thing. I mean, I think it's one of those things like but at the same time, you can't blame them because they don't know. Right?
Sure.
Everything they know about a bear is because they've seen the sensationalized headlines. They've watched The Revenant. Like that's what they go out there with, that mindset. And they just don't know. And they go out there afraid and they shoot a bear. And it didn't have to happen. Most of the time it does not have to happen. I mean, what's the odds, right? I go out and actively follow grizzly bears for 30 years and I've never had to kill one. And these guys go out on the weekend and they just get unlucky a bunch of times and up in northern Montana. I think there's something more that happened in there.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a little break right now.
Okay.
When we come back, I want to talk about a couple things. One, the appropriate thing to do when you're worried about a bear's presence. I'd love to hear more, about, we'll talk about this on the break, whether or not you want to talk about it, that being the fatality that you dealt with. And then I want to talk about, immediately when we get back, the populations, the island populations in Montana and what that means for conservation of grizzly bears, in the state. Does that work for you?
Yep, good.
All right, man. We'll be right back.
You have a specimen?
This morning.
What is the approximate weight?
About 30 kilos.
What species is it?
Velociraptor.
Is she sedated?
Twice. Easy, girl. Easy, girl. Get back! Hey! Run. Yeah! Get back! Dino days are coming. Dino Days. 5 days of dinosaur podcasts, Q&As with leading paleontologists, and real Dino Dig live streams. We're going to be digging up our very own dinosaur fossils with the one and only dinosaur cowboy, Clayton Phipps. Exploring the controversial project that could bring dinosaurs back to Earth with Jurassic Park inspiration Jack Horner. And diving into the bizarre story of Sue the T-Rex in the documentary Dinosaur 13 with Black Hills Institute founder Pete Larson. All that and more, airing June 30th to July 4th, only on the Backcountry Manifesto YouTube channel.
Okay, welcome back. You also, in that ad break, you saw our Dino Week promo. That is going on, or Dino Days is what we're calling it, Dino Days. Andrew is currently waiting for his Academy Award consideration, and Drew has already got his Academy Award in the mail. That's going to be really fun. And Clayton Phipps.
I know him well, yeah.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of really cool stuff. I'm really excited to share with you guys, including those three podcasts. Okay. So back to grizzly bears, another thing with big teeth and claws. It's mammalian, but when we left off, we were talking about some of the conservation issues and some of the attitudes towards grizzly bears and the delisting of grizzly bears. It is no secret that in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and viewers, listeners, right, that's like the area in immediate proximity to Yellowstone National Park. Do you know what the dividing line is between something being in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem versus not?
I don't. And it's always changed a little bit.
I would assume it has something to do with like mountain ranges and geographic borders and things like that. Because it's it kind of looks like a fried egg,
It does, yeah.
Where like the park is the yolk and then the GYE is the white. That is how I'm going to describe that forever.
That's great. Me too. I'm going to steal that one from you.
You're welcome to it. There's no secret that there are a lot of grizzly bears in the GYE. But it's not as simple as, okay, there are 900 grizzly bears running around here. Do you know what the approximate population estimation is?
It changes. It was up to 1,500, and then now I think it's back down to they say 1,200 and something. They did a more refined statistical measurement.
Yeah.
And it came up with like a 1,290 some
Yeah.
bears. So give or take, I think, we could say 1,300.
And Andrew will find out what like the most up to date thing is. It does fluctuate constantly though, so no one's going to hold you to it. Anyhow, it's not as easy as just being like, okay, there are this many grizzly bears here. We did it, guys. What are some other challenges to getting grizzly bears removed from the endangered species list?
Well, I think the biggest challenges are
or grizzly bear recovery. I guess like that's like a better way to put it, right?
Yeah.
Because when you hear getting grizzly bears removed from the endangered species list, a lot of people think that means exclusively for the purpose of being able to hunt them. So completing the grizzly bear recovery objectives, what are the things that need to happen?
Yeah, I think that one of the main things is that, bears are so vulnerable to so many different things. And there's a lot of development going on in the GYE. There's genetic isolation. So these bears are on an island. They're not mating with other bears outside of this island. So basically the genetic pool is isolated.
Now, when you say an island, you don't mean a literal island. What do you mean?
So they're not connected to any outside population.
Right.
So essentially every bear that's within that ecosystem is a result of that ecosystem and those bears within it. And so that genetic pool there's no diversity there. And so over time, that can start, because of basically inbreeding, can start to create problems within a population.
Yeah, keep talking. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit.
And so I think that's one of the concerns. So you have multiple variables. You have things like a changing ecosystem constantly, development, climate change, whether you believe in it or not, food sources like white bark pine that have been killed off. So now that's a critical food source in the fall for them. So there's all these variables happening simultaneously with a population that was not that long ago endangered, right? So as soon as it comes off, do you add another variable by hunting them? So I think that's the big issue right now is like, you don't want to be premature about taking them off protection because they do have all these variables working against them constantly. You want to let, nature is not something that happens in a year. It's not something that happens in a decade. Nature happens in hundreds of years and thousands of years. So to be sensitive to these animals and let them recover and then give them some buffer to prove to us that they are recovered. Because it would just take one little thing and they could just be set back very quickly. And there's so many variables.
Something like that be?
I mean, development, disease, food sources going away. All those things are happening all the time. We had bears in the ecosystem die of bird flu this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And no one would ever thought of that. So if we had an epidemic of bird flu come through there and it killed 15 bears, that's a large percentage.
Yeah. Well, Boone's butt is probably
That'll kill a bear.
Yeah.
shot right now.
So the 2024 estimate for the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem by the National Park Service is 1,030 grizzly bears.
1,030.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the number hovers in that zone. And then one of the biggest variables is that they have a low reproductive rate.
Oh, right. Because the sow will have cubs with her for 2 to 3 years, whereas things like elk, they're turning over all the time.
Immediately.
Wolves are turning over litters every year.
Every year. Yeah. So you have a replacement that exact following year where to replace a bear in that ecosystem, it's going to take at least 3 years. And most sows, they won't mate like every 6 years. And then the survival of those cubs is less than 50%. So replacing those animals as they are removed for whatever reason is hard. And all you need is, you have a big die off and then a not very reproductive cycle. You're set back hundreds of animals. So I think that the caution is actually pretty valid. You get them to the point where they're off the endangered species list, and adding another variable like hunting immediately would be premature.
Yeah. But, one thing that I do want to hammer home to like our viewers and listeners who might not, they might not be as well versed in some of this stuff as, you are, and I'd like to think that I am. I want to take the hunters kind of off the table necessarily as like the total boogeyman. It's not like the only people that want to delist grizzly bears are hunters because they want to go kill grizzly bears. And if grizzly bears were to be delisted, it's not as if it's going to be open season. Any hunter can go into any place where there are grizzly bears and go shoot a grizzly bear. That is not, I know that you know this. I know that I'm presenting it to you as if like you're the intended target, but you're not.
Yep.
But the grizzly bears aren't the intended target either. I mean, like, in a literal sense, you see all this, a lot of times you see a lot of the, really anti-hunters. And, again, viewers, listeners, it's your right to decide how you feel about all these issues. I'm just telling you how I feel about it. If you're anti-hunting, man, like, I would suggest you do some more research and, whatever, but like, it's your right to be that way. It's not how I am, but whatever. You see a lot of like people using, what was the bear in the Tetons?
Yeah. $3.99.
Yeah. Everybody was talking, like a lot of anti-hunting propaganda went towards being like, she puts out this many cubs every year and a hunter wants her to be their trophy. I'm just like, dude, unless you're an evil fucking person, no, there's no hunter being like, man, I really like to kill that one.
Right.
I mean, they are these ridiculous things. So I just kind of don't want to sour, because that's the kind of thing. I don't want to sour people on the idea of ethical hunting and wildlife management through hunting, because they have these kind of skewed ideas of how things are. And, I think there's a lot of power in, just like you were saying earlier, keeping like level perspective in a lot of this stuff.
And just to reinforce what you said, I think most hunters, if they're going to hunt a species, they'd want it to be recovered, and they'd want it to be in a position where it's healthy enough to hunt. Yeah. And I don't think it's an issue. Like you said, recovery is the issue. I mean, ultimately, the Endangered Species Act was created to take an animal in peril and put the resources and protections towards it that makes it healthy again. And the grizzly bears are a success story. It is one of the biggest species in the North America, that big success story.
Sure.
And to see it through would be a wonderful thing. I really do believe that. But to see it through prematurely would be a terrible thing.
Right.
So I think we just got to be careful with it, but not overly cautious where it becomes a joke.
Yeah. You don't want to be like somebody who goes from rags to riches and then blows all the money, before they're like, okay, yeah, I'm financially stable.
Yep. Exactly. That's a great analogy.
Well, thank you. Okay. So let's talk about Bear 399, because I want to talk about human and bear conflict outside of like totally sensational things, but that's a really good example of a way that bears are having kind of negative consequences interacting with humans. Like there are enough of them now that we are having these interactions that result in less than ideal realities, I guess. Can you tell me about 399?
Yeah, 399 is an interesting bear. I don't know a ton. I try to avoid that situation as much as I could,
sure.
But I could speak relatively accurately. Interesting bear. Not uncommon for females to raise their cubs near roads if they realize, and they're smart enough, that if they can tolerate the proximity of people, they actually will get direct protection from that. Mm-hmm. And she was a bear that realized that if she was near people all the time, other big male bears that were a danger to her cubs, and wolves that were a danger to her cubs wouldn't be around. The habitat's great along the roads. And if the people tolerated her, she'd be okay. And so she did. She raised lots of cubs successfully along the side of the road and became kind of an icon because she was so visible and so comfortable around people.
I didn't know that's what it was. I thought it was entirely the amount of cubs that she had. I had no idea that it was because she had just developed this pattern of extreme visibility.
Yeah, and it helped her, and they kind of create these little, I would call them nurseries along roads. Certain females will figure it out. And it works for her, because then she, on some level, the people are like babysitters for her, and keeping the dangers away. And the other bears are not occupying that territory. So she has all those resources to herself, and her cubs do too. And yeah, then she becomes this icon, superstar, because she's always by the road and tolerant and has cubs, and people love that. And yeah, it does create this thing, I think, a little bit where it's a double-edged sword. You have this animal who is getting all this attention. You're getting all these images of people are celebrating her. And she almost becomes this character bigger than grizzlies in general. But then it does get people interested in protecting grizzly bears and thinking about grizzly bears. But at the same time, her unique behavior paints this picture that's not super accurate of what all the grizzly bears are doing. And her tolerance shows something that's not typical amongst grizzly bear behavior either. And so I think people got lulled into that a little bit too. And they do become, they kind of anthropomorphize that animal and give it this different, I guess, at some level of I don't know, credibility or something at some level. And it gets skewed, and it's weird. It's a weird game.
Well, anytime like I'm watching like a nature documentary and they're like, it's like, I'm like, oh, this is like really well shot. I'm very excited, and then the narrator comes on and goes, Nala is a lioness and her cubs, a Tunde and, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, like, I don't want to hear about like, the wolves, like I don't want to hear the lion cubs with like names. Like I just want you to show me like the thing.
I'm torn on that one. It's one of those things like,
it's a useful tool. Like it's a
label
as a device. It's like a really good way to keep track of these stories. But I feel like it's like and I don't mean to cut you off, but it's like everybody's seen that image of like the breakdown of the wolf pack, how it's like this one is the weakest and it's in front, so it sets the pace, and all the other wolves. And it's like, no, it's not at all what's happening.
No, Brian, no,
it's just like someone kind of made a narrative and put it on these things. And so I feel like in the context of nature documentaries, when you start naming the things, then you start like, putting meaning behind their actions, and then you start building this whole narrative, and then it's like a skewed way to look at stuff.
And it's abused sometimes, for sure. No, I feel like that. And funny, it's because I watch them critically all the time, and they'll label this black wolf is doing this, and it's named whatever Shadow, right?
Yeah.
And then the next Shadow continues, and I'm like, that's not the same wolf. Like they just literally, it's two different wolves, and they're just, the editor's like, oh, we're missing a shot of Shadow here. Well, let's take this one over here, and, and they do that, and they make the story. So it's a lie anyway. And the bottom line is that Shadow doesn't care if his name's Shadow or 304 or whatever, right? It's a pointless thing.
So anyway, 399.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. And then we all knew that her demise was going to be what it was. That tolerance and being next to roads is dangerous.
Yeah.
And she ultimately was killed by a car. And there's a reason why you shouldn't be comfortable around roads. And she got away with it. It was amazing watching her. Like when she did cross roads, she looked both ways. She had a real good sense of traffic. She really did thrive in that environment, but it just caught up to her.
Yeah. And that's like a reality of being in close proximity to these animals. There are ways to interact with it that are kind of like difficult almost, but like need to happen. And I'll give you an example. We were talking about the need for genetic diversity among these island populations of grizzly bears. Well, one of the main blocks and we talked about this in the Rudy Norlander episode, I think. Like Highway 90, big problem. Just highways in general, dude, the big problems. They're difficult for those animals to cross. And what you're starting to see implemented more and more as of late are underpasses, designed specifically to allow these animals to link, or like, tearing down, and this is like to a lesser extent, but like tearing down old purposeless fence, things of that nature. So we do have the ability. It's just like kind of inconvenient. And like, you also have to kind of lean into the taxpayer a little bit in order to get that thing done. And you tell somebody that you want the tax dollars to go to making it easier for grizzly bears to repatriate their native range. A lot of people go, well, I really like hiking around the tobacco roots without like being worried about getting tagged by it. Although I think they recently found grizzly bears in the tobacco
They did,
roots. Yeah. So haha, but it's like, what do you say to the general public that is fearful of that kind of line of rewilding?
I hate to tell people any way to feel about it.
Well, how do you feel about it?
I get it. Yeah. I think that there's people who grew up on this landscape, and their dad and their grandpa did, and they didn't see any grizzly bears, and now they're seeing grizzly bears in their backyard for the first time. They don't know how to deal with it. They never had to deal with it. It's risking their lifestyle. They might have cattle and they worry about their calves. I totally get that and totally empathize with that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that's like, it is a good thing. You know, Montana's Montana. Grizzly bears, if they were to occupy every spot that they lived in Montana at one point, it would be the whole state, right? Do we live in that world anymore? No. But is there a compromise there? Can we allow them to move into spots like the Missouri River breaks where they would thrive and be fine? Yeah, let's let them do it. But people have to tolerate it, you know, and it's hard. It's hard to say, hey, it's okay to have a grizzly bear in their backyard. But it boils down to that same thing, is like, what is the ultimate goal? And to me, the ultimate goal is to have those ecosystems that are intact, and when they're intact, they're healthy. And a lot of these places that you wonder what the problem is, and it's missing a big predator. And that's what we need, you know. And I think that's the end goal. I mean, that's what you can tell them. You know, you take the social pressures of all those things; they all should be factored into that too. It's complicated. It's hard, man. It's not black and white, and I think there's going to be compromise on both ways.
That was actually going to be one of my follow-up questions. Like, what is why should we want, you know, the grizzly bears on the landscape? And I think, yeah, having a big predator to make sure that the ecosystem is balanced in the way that it's supposed to be balanced, hugely important. You know, I don't mean to like get off on this thing, you know, but the Prairie Reserve, the National Prairie Reserve, right? Or the American Prairie Reserve. That sounds like a great thing, right? Bringing prairie grasses, you know.
Maybe ask, what do you think about that?
Oh, that's exactly what I wasn't going to say a name. beep. beep that one. But yeah, I know people who are like very, very, very heavily opposed to that because of what it would mean to them. And then they break down their reason for it. It's a logical like train of thought, you know, but it's like, where do you go? Are you going to go like the financial like logic, or are you going to go the ideal, you know, the idealist? And I don't know, man, it's just like such a messy thing to unpack. And it's funny because I'm somebody that's not scared of grizzly bears, but they make me uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
Yeah. But I mean, dude, you get like so many people walking around like, oh, I'm not afraid of any bear. Like, and I'm not going to get bullied by the bears. It's like, well, I don't know, man. Like, I'm really conflicted. Like, you know, it creeps me out when I'm elk hunting. And like, I know that there are grizzly bears in there because, you know, it's like, okay, like, do I really want to shoot an elk right now and have to like gut it out alone while I got like, you know, the potential for like a grizzly bear encounter? Like
the last light of the day.
Yeah. I mean, you know, PSA, hunt with a partner in grizzly country. Duh, don't do that. Like, don't like go solo, but you know.
Some interesting facts on Grizzly 399. She lived to 28 years old. She raised 18 cubs across 8 litters, including a rare triplet and a set of quadruplets.
She was a machine, man. I mean, think about 18 bears she contributed in those 28 years.
28. Yep.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. She lived to be old. And one thing that's interesting is, and something I've been looking into a storyteller, is there's very few places on the planet where animals get to live to be old.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen, you know? And when you find those places where animals get to live to be old, they're usually super intact, healthy places. And then it had a lot to do with her tactic of her adapting to being around people, because her lifestyle and her environment around her was completely changing constantly. So she decided that she was going to fill this niche in this world that we are very much part of the ecosystem now. And she lived to be 28 years old. It's cool. Crazy. Yeah.
So that's an interaction between bears and people that was not fortuitous for the bear. Earlier you had talked about mentioned a worst case scenario for a person interacting with a bear. We talked a little bit about the break, and I'd asked you, or about it during the break, and I'd asked you if you'd share that story, and you said you would. So,
I'm on the Park County Search and Rescue team.
Okay.
And 3 years ago, we got a call of a missing guy who didn't come back to the truck. He was out antler hunting with his buddy.
Whereabouts?
Down in Paradise Valley, just north of Yellowstone.
Yeah.
It was early in the season. It was March. So bears weren't heavy on the radar, but they were on the possibility radar. And it was in an area definitely that there was certainly grizzly bears around. But I remember when the call came in, that wasn't our immediate thing. It was if someone was missing in Tom Minor Basin, we'd be like, it's probably a bear, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was not. We thought maybe someone hurt his broken ankle or something, was stuck up on the mountain. So after a couple of days of looking, one of the group's search parties came across, saw him dead and grizzly tracks right near. And I remember the radio call coming in and pulled everybody out of there right away because we didn't know what was going on. So I was part of the investigative team. So it was me, some fish wildlife guys, county sheriff department. And it was interesting because as a tracker, there was snow on the ground still. And as you moved in there, the whole scene was painted in the snow. Like we could literally see what happened. He was looking for antlers, was in this really good spot. And it's funny, it's a spot I've been a bunch of times, so I could completely relate to it. He was working the wind blown ridges and then got to this nice patch of lodgepole pine trees. And there was a couple bull tracks going up into a perfect place for them to go bed down. And, he had dropped his backpack, which had happened to have the bear spray on it, and put on his snowshoes and followed the bull tracks into the trees and in pretty deep snow. And then he we could see where his tracks came in and encountered fresh bear tracks, and you could see where he stopped and looked at them for a long time. Like you could see where he stepped around and then he turned away from them to go away. And what happened is that bear went up and kind of button hooked, made a kind of a J and bedded down. And he walked right into the bear bedded down. And the bear was, where he was attacked and where the bear was bedded down was probably 5 yards, 6 yards away. And you could see where the bear had dug a day bed next to a tree and was laying down and then got up and ran towards the guy. You could see where the dirt from the day bed had come off into the snow and hit him and killed him. And classic. I mean, I've interviewed people that have been attacked by bears a bunch of times. I've read the reports of people that have been killed by bears a bunch of times. He fought and screamed. It was really very apparent. All the defensive wounds of his arms and hands in the mouth and trying to push that bear away. And then every time, if you talk to your buddy Rudy about this, but as soon as you scream, the bear goes right for your head and neck every time. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's just trying to stop. My analogy is like a squeaky toy for a dog. And as soon as that thing's going to squeak, they just want that squeak and they want to make the squeak go away. And so fighting and screaming is one of my main things I tell people when they're out in bear country is don't scream, don't fight, don't scream, don't fight. Because it just heightens the whole thing up. And that bear ultimately grabbed him by the head and broke his neck. So then, as part of that team, investigative team, I sat with him and was pulling bear hair off of his body for a DNA sample, just in case this was a repeat offender.
Sure.
And had a lot of insight with the investigators, because they were asking me, what do I think happened? And I could see very clearly what happened. He had a massive wound on his thigh where it was a pressure bite where the bear grabbed him and shook him, and it laid open his quadricep wide open, filleted it. And it looked like the bear had fed on him because it was such a massive wound. But as I looked at him, like, this bear didn't eat him at all. There's no sign of that. But initially, I think there was a few people there that thought this was a predation situation, which would have made it very different, But as you look in the tracks in the snow, that bear attacked him and ran away and never came back. Probably as scared as the guy was and just reacting accordingly. But we just can't handle the fight. Yeah, sad. I mean, young guy with family of 4 kids. I spent, like I said, hours with him on the mountain, and then ultimately helped carry him off. And you could see the results of what a bear can do in seconds. And it's the reality out there. And I think had he had his bear spray that day, would he have survived? Maybe, maybe not, but probably his odds would have went up a lot.
Sure.
If he didn't fight, if he didn't scream, would he have survived? Maybe, maybe not, but his odds would have went up a lot. And I think this is the things that you learn, and that's why I'm so fascinated. Why I want to talk to your buddy Rudy. Like every time you talk to somebody who's had a bad encounter with a bear and has actually physically been harmed by a bear, you can learn from it, especially if they can tell you the story. and especially if they're honest about it. And most people, man, they say 100% actually, if they have any facial problems, and most guys get scalped or get bit in the face somehow, is because they were screaming.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think the impetus for that attack was? Was he jumped the bear and the bear was trying to neutralize something that surprised him? Kind of like when your friend jumps around the corner and you just shove him out of instinct? Scared
him, yeah, scared the bear. Just came over and that bear was laying there and just too close and got scared. And grizzly bears in that fight or flight choice that they make, more often than not, they're going to run away. But if they feel like they need to, it's close quarters, they feel like they can't get away, they're going to go over and eliminate the threat. That's what 99% of attacks are, is just them trying to neutralize a threat. And that bear felt like that guy was in a threatening position. It was uphill from him, kind of over the top of him, really close proximity, surprised him. And the same thing, like I said, if you jump around the corner and you go, to your buddy, some of your buddies are going to punch you, and some of your buddies are going to scream and put their hands up, right? And the bears make the same decisions in those moments. And so what you do in that moment is the same thing. Like, if your buddy punches you and you punch him back, he's going to punch you again, right? Mm-hmm. If you curl up in a ball and lay on the ground, then your buddy's like, oh, it's just you, whatever. Why'd you do that, man? And walk away. Same thing. You got to get into the psychology of these animals and understand why they're attacking. And what you do in that moment is going to really dictate what's going to happen from that moment on. And it's hard to hammer that in people's heads, because usually when you encounter a bear, the first thing you're thinking about doing is panicking and freaking out.
Sure.
And it's actually the last thing you should be doing. It's getting that confidence and being cool and calm and collected and understanding that you can actually get yourself out of that situation just by doing the right thing.
Perfect. So that's a great segue into, let's start from the top. How should people prepare to go in grizzly country? How should they conduct themselves in grizzly country? And then if the worst case scenario should happen, they have some encounter at really close proximity, what should they do then? Either, to diffuse a situation, or if it gets to the truly worst case scenario, that being a direct, confrontation. So prior to entering grizzly country.
Yeah, I think prior to entering grizzly country is you got to listen to this podcast. And it's arming yourself with knowledge. Like, most people that go into grizzly country don't even know they're in grizzly country. I mean, I think if you're going to be hiking in the American West, you need to figure out what potential threats are there and then take precautions and prepare yourself accordingly. Now, when it comes to grizzly bear country, that is understanding you're in grizzly bear country, knowing what sign looks like, right? Like what a bear track looks like, what bear scat looks like, where bears like to be at certain times of the day, what do they like to eat, things like that. I think those are very important things. Then as you're moving across the landscape, you can make choices that can help you navigate yourself away from threats, right?
Sure.
I think that's a huge thing to do. And then what can you do? What tools can you have? Carrying bear spray, taking a handgun. I mean, things that you feel comfortable with, and understand how to use them and where they should be on your body. And I think and practicing with them. I mean, those are huge things. Way before you ever hit that trailhead, if you're going to be in bear country and you're going to have bear spray, you better know how to use it, and you better have it accessible. So frequently, the people take bear spray, and this is one of the biggest mistakes I ever see. They have it in their backpack or in their water bottle holder where you can't even grab it very fast. I mean, you need to have it in your front, basically in front of your hips forward, from your neck down to your hip, somewhere in that zone where you can grab it very quickly.
I always have mine on the strap of my backpack on the opposite side of my right hand, because that's going to be easy to reach. I'm not going to be like this. I'll go bam, bam.
That's where mine is. Yeah, I find that the best way.
Yeah.
And you can actually just even at the pulley, just right from there if you had to. Yeah. And practice that. Like, pull that safety trigger off. Go through the motion so it becomes muscle memory. Think about it. Every time I go into bear country, I literally grab my bear spray multiple times in the day. I talk about it with whoever I'm with. If I'm with somebody, we talk about what we would do if that was situation would come. We double check each other's stuff. We'd shake our cans, make sure we got enough stuff in it. We know where each other's bear spray is. It's just getting yourself in the state of mind, because you're going into the realm of a place where there's an animal that could kill you, right? Mm-hmm. So why not be prepared for this stuff?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Would you grab that bear spray canister just right behind you there? Maybe we can talk about this with some props. Yeah. So, okay, you hear it all the time, and I think it's. Do you think anybody's ever sprayed that on themselves as if it were bug spray? I hear that joke all the time. I kind of feel like that's never happened.
I think that I bet it has happened.
You think so?
Yeah. I don't think it's happened as much as people say it does. Probably there's the same story. Like they dropped somebody off and then they pulled away in a airplane, looked down, like people are floundering around on the ground. Like I've heard that story and I've heard a helicopter and airplane. I think it's all BS, but I bet someone's definitely done something stupid like that. I mean, people are people, man. They do dumb things. I've sprayed myself with it. But not like I thought it was bug spray.
Right. It's just high octane mace.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of like super hot pepper oil and a propellant. It comes out in a giant fog and shoots like 30 feet.
Say that there was a bear that was in a proximity and you're reaching for your bear spray, right? Take me through kind of the proximity, right? You know, for instance, the bear's at 50 yards and you just have your hand on your bear spray being like, okay, this could go one way or another. It's probably going to be fine, but I'll hold on to it just in case. And then kind of, if you could break down like, okay, the bear is now facing in my direction and has closed to 40 yards. Like, where are you at now? Are you taking the safety off? Like, all the way to spraying the bear and the steps to like effectively deploying bear spray. Can we do that?
Yeah, we can. I mean, I got to do it in a generalization. There's a lot of nuances in this whole thing.
Yeah,
I'll
totally
try. I mean, I think, you're walking on the trail and you encounter a bear, and let's just give it 50 yards. I think it's a good distance. The bear sees you, you see the bear, right? Well, we'll back up. The bear doesn't see you yet. What should you do? Sneak out of there. Just turn around and walk out of there. Like, don't go closer to it. You could even, bear sees you could take some pictures or whatever, but just back out there slowly. The bear sees you and you see the bear. I think that's one of those moments where you've now entered the bear's backyard in their mindset, right? So what you do in that situation, if you have bear spray, get your hand right here, right? Just so you don't have to think about it. Mm-hmm. Put your thumb on the face safety trigger. You don't have to pull it off yet. Watch that bear's behavior, right? Back out of there slowly. Just back out. What I always like to say is like, and in fact, I tell people this sometimes, it's like, if you literally go, oh, sorry, bear, I didn't mean to get in your backyard. I'm going to go this way now. A bunch of things happen. Even though that bear doesn't understand what you're saying, you start doing things with your body language, like, oh, sorry, like even like turning your head and like not breaking eye contact and like talking in the voice that has like a calming intonation. And then your body language, like, you're going to kind of do this, like you're going to throw your hands up and kind of hang your head and going to kind of turn. It's going to trick you into doing something that bear does understand. And bears and other animals interact all the time like that. And that's what they do. When they walk up to each other, they don't just fight each other. They they drop and they take their eyes off each other and they just move away. Just do that. Keep your hand on your bear spray just in case. If that bear starts to come towards you, pop the safety trigger off.
Yeah, and that's that little wedge thing under.
I can pop it off.
You can take it off, just don't point it at me.
I won't, yeah. So yeah, you just pop that off. Now, the other thing I see a lot of people do is that this often has a zip tie around it when you buy it. I've seen people so many times have that zip tie on it in the field. Don't do that because you'll never have access to this. So popping that safety trigger off, now it's like pulling a pin out of a grenade. It's live. Bad things can happen. So if you're out of danger, make sure you get that back on there. So having the safety trigger off, finger on the trigger, if you have to take it out, grab it with one hand and hold it like this and have it aimed at that bear.
Because that thing, it'll like...
It gives a little kick, for sure. But just having confident control of it like that, I think it makes a big difference. And aiming it at that bear, just holding it, even if he's not being aggressive, but he's coming towards you because he might be just being curious. And then I think the same thing, go through the motions. Use the human voice is one of the best deterrents. It's like, hey bear, it's okay. I'm going to go out of here. Don't, leave me alone.
I'm not what you're looking for.
Yeah. And they generally will run away. If that bear is now moving at you in a fast pace and it's coming and you have no doubt that its intention is to come to make contact with you. This stuff is, I would say, effective to 30 feet. I just did a bunch of tests with it. It really lays the most particulate down about 25 feet, 20 to 25 feet.
I'm assuming you have YouTube videos about this.
Yeah, I have a YouTube video about it for sure.
You guys, there's a link in the description to that video, and there's also a clip of that playing over his shoulder right now.
And so when you spray it, you got to remember that when they're closing the gap and they're running full speed, what you really want to do is kind of get a wall out in front of them so they're going to run into that wall.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say a bear running full tilt at 60 feet, at even more than that, maybe 100 feet, you can start to give this a couple of second blasts, like paint on the wall, just right out in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Aim kind of low because bears come with their head low. So then it's not going to be up where your head is. It's going to be down more of your waist height.
Yeah.
Spray down in that range and paint a wall about 25 feet away from you and let that bear run into that. And then when this particulate gets in their eyes and their nose, they hate it, man. Every muscle in their body wants to go the other direction. Now, if they move through that cloud, continue to spray.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know this can exactly has about 5.5 seconds to spray.
That's it.
Yeah, it goes quick. So you don't want to use it all. Like when I've sprayed bears and I've stopped it, it's always been with, and that's it. And I've still got 4 seconds of spray in my can. So if they continued, and then if they're getting in point blank range, empty the can in their face. Now, if you have wind or weather, not in your favor, so wind's in your face or it's really raining, you're going to have to wait for that bear to get closer. And you have to have confidence in it. Spraying a bear, I've got lots of stories where people have sprayed bears at 5 feet away because the wind was in their face and they got a bunch of it in their face, but it still turned the bear away. Super effective. If you can get this on a bear in their face, over, I think it's like 95% of the time, the bear doesn't even touch the person.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know of any 100% confirmed where the people have used it right and they were mauled or killed. I know people have shot the bear spray and they get mauled, but no one really knows if they shot it too soon or if they shot it in the right place, things like that. They just know the bear spray can was empty and then they got hurt or they got mauled and killed. But no one never knows if it really was used in a correct way. I have yet to see, like I said, it's stopped multiple bears for me. I've never had any, like a bear come back after it. I know like Todd Orr was a guy that was famously.
In Wyoming. Yeah.
He sprayed a bear and the bear came back around. You often wonder if maybe that first batch just didn't get very much on the bear. And I've used it in so many different situations. It's been 100% for me. It's my first go-to, There's times I take handguns in the field, but I would never reach for the handgun first.
So I want to talk about the second most common, I guess, bear deterrent, pistol.
Yep.
You carry a pistol sometimes. I carry a pistol sometimes when I'm out in grizzly country. Let's talk about that in a vacuum. Like, forget it compared to bear spray. But then let's talk and compare the two as far as their efficacy, additional risks, I guess, variables, things like that. So, what do you carry when you're in the field and you decide, okay, I want a pistol with me for whatever reason? Yeah,
I've got a Glock 20 10 millimeter.
That's what I carry.
It's hard hitting and it has a lot of rounds in it. I'm comfortable shooting it. I think that's the main thing. Well, no matter what you choose, you just got to be comfortable and practice with it and know that it's going to be effective. It's just another tool in my toolbox just in case something goes wrong. Again, I've been around bears that are bad, and there's potential of that out there. And I'd like to have it. I'll also have it because they run into weird people out in the woods sometimes too, which bear spray can work on that too.
Yeah.
But, on my YouTube thing that's right over here playing on my head, we did a test with the handguns too. And we had a moving target coming down towards us. And it was about a 10-inch circle, which is about the vital area you need to hit to actually stop a bear. And it was hard, man. We hit it a quarter of the time. And we knew it was coming. We weren't surprised. We had it the handgun in our hand ready for it to happen. And we still had a very difficult time hitting it. So, that's the problem with the handgun is if you don't kill that bear and you wound that bear on the way into that fight, you actually are starting to amp that fight up a little bit.
Yeah, you've thrown the first punch in a confrontation that hadn't turned physical quite yet.
Yeah, and now you've nicked it and wounded it. Now that its adrenaline's gone through the roof, it's in self-preservation mode, and the fight's on. And so if you intend on using a handgun, you better be good with it. And if you engage with a handgun, you better kill the bear. And that's what needs to happen. And one thing we talked about is like, and it can be effective. It's got its downsides. I've even sometimes when I'm practicing, I'll get a jam and I think, oh, if this isn't the real deal, game over. Right. But you got to practice. I mean, I think it's the bottom line. Whatever you're going to do, you got to practice and be good with it and be confident with it. One thing I brought up with the guy when I was in the video that I thought of is like, more often than not, it's not your own tool that's going to save you. It's going to be your buddy's tool that's going to save you.
That's interesting. Yeah, sure.
So if a bear, imagine a bear jumps on you and he's mauling you, what do you want your buddy to have?
A gun.
You do.
Yeah.
You want him to shoot the bear when he's on top of you.
I honestly, like genuinely, like kind of, because I feel like at the point that bear has committed to attacking me, it might be like motivated in such a way that it could just stay kind of latched on. Now it's not like, it doesn't have to like, assess directions, assess variables and close a distance. If that thing has like a pepper spray, a face full of pepper spray, all it needs to do is latch on and just keep biting down on the same spot. So that's kind of my feeling about it. That said, I mean, well, okay, like what if Emily Ratajkowski like started knocking on my door and tried to kiss me? It's like, we're talking about a crazy scenario. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how I'd react.
Man, I hope that happens.
Well, I'm very happy with, I do know how I'd react, honey. I would say, no, I'm very happy with my fiance, Catherine, and I would tell her to leave.
Yeah.
But like, you get what I'm saying. I mean, all jokes aside, right? Like, yeah, how you would rather have?
I would rather have bear spray because I've seen what it can do. I hear what you say.
I would rather have bear spray prior to like contact.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, I think that if you've sprayed the bear and then all of a sudden that bear has gone through somehow and it's still enraged and on top of it, then you want tool B, right? Yeah. But however, I know my friends, and if they're all heightened up and they've got a 10 millimeter and I'm underneath a pile of fur and they're just putting shells into it, they're probably putting them into me too.
Yeah.
And that scares me, where they could walk up to the point blank with the bear spray and just paint its face orange and it'll run away.
Yeah. That's an interesting, I've told Andrew when we were in grizzly bear country that if one ever jumped on me, he has permission to try and shoot it off me. And that was mostly, we were just kind of kidding around. But let me put it to you like this, though. Say you told me that I could have whatever I wanted short of a hand grenade. If I were to go into a place and I knew for certain that I was going to be attacked by a grizzly bear, right? What I would really want would be a pump shotgun with like some slugs in it, like a really reliable, short barreled, like something like that. However, if that bear is on me, now I want the pistol. Like, because like that, like I'm not going to be able to like shoot it with like a shotgun because it's just going to be too long. So it changes, I guess, all the time is, my kind of consideration. But I mean, I'm with you. Like the bear spray always for me is like the first line of.
And it's hard for people to get confident behind it. I think it's like, you think, oh, bear spray is going to stop a grizzly bear. Spray is going to, and if you haven't used it, I'm confident because I've used it and I've seen it work over and over and over again. And I could see where someone would doubt that, right? They're going to want something they know they've killed many animals with a gun. They know they can shoot it.
It's fatal.
Yeah. And that's going to stop it. But the one thing, like you said, a good point is if you were on the ground getting thrown around and this was on your chest, right? And there's no way you're going to have a shotgun or you're going to be able to reach down and grab your handgun and put it in its mouth. This thing can go off at any time, any direction. And it's going to make a difference. I mean, if you just reach up and pull the trigger and just put your hand down on it and it just shoots in the air.
Dude, if you put that thing in between like you and the bear bites down on it.
It's happened. It happened to that guy in the Tetons.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That bear rushed him at point blank range. He pulled his bear spray out. He got knocked to the ground and he went like this and the bear bit the can and the can exploded and that bear ran away. Yeah. So it does happen.
I compare it a lot, the gun versus the bear spray, to imagine that there was a dartboard coming at you. And I either gave you 10 tries with darts to like hit a bullseye, or I gave you 1 try with a fire extinguisher and all you had to do was have some of that fire extinguisher dust on the bullseye, which one are you going to take?
Dude, that's a great analogy. Another great analogy, man. Yeah, I'm going to steal that one from you again.
Dude, you're like fucking feeding my ego today, man.
That's a good one. But it's a good one. It's a very accurate and it's right. Yeah.
You know, but the other thing that I tell people all the time, because when I do carry a pistol, number one, normally it's because the one thing that I'll say about a pistol is it does have the sound.
Yeah.
Right. So like I feel like that's actually a pretty good deterrent. And I would posit that most things where confrontation is successfully avoided with a pistol probably comes from the sound and just like that level of loudness.
Yep. It also gives you a moment of confidence. I think if you pull out, you're like, okay, I'm going to shoot a warning shot, right?
Yeah.
What you're doing is that you're doing the right thing in that moment. You're like, you're holding your ground. You're not going into some weird, prey mode or squeaking and going away in a fast way and panicking. You're stopping, you're doing something definitive and you're making a loud noise and showing, hey, this is my space.
Yeah.
And that's something a bear can understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to more than just the tool. It's actually what that tool is doing to your confidence and making you do the right thing.
Yeah. When I'm walking around in bear country, for the most part, a lot of times, if I'm somewhere where I'm confident, like nobody's going to come up on my campsite, I leave my gun in the tent. And the reason that I do that is because I don't want to deploy bear spray in a tent. Because congratulations, home, you've just made yourself a spicy dumpling, but like when I'm on the trail, I really do have pretty full confidence in bear spray. The other thing that I get chided about sometimes is when I do carry a pistol for whatever reason, I don't keep one in the pipe. It's just not something that I do. With a Glock 20, which is what both of us carry, it does not have a thumb safety on it. It has a trigger safety, but a trigger safety is a fucking joke. I feel like I am so much more likely to shoot myself in the femoral artery trying to unholster that thing than I am to die in a conflict with the grizzly bear where I would have been successful, had I been able to get that thing unholstered, easily. And this is an argument that Andrew and I have had a bunch of times because he's in the opposite camp. What do you think about that theory?
Dude, I'm with you on that 100%. I have such a hard time keeping one in the pipe.
Yeah.
And it may be something from back in the day too. Like, they talk to the Glock folks are like, no, don't worry about it, dude. You're good. My law enforcement friends are like, that's what they do all day long, right? They have one in the pipe all day long. I sit the same thing, man. I just don't trust it. I think I don't trust myself. I don't trust it. I almost never do. And then if you don't, it's almost worthless in bear country because you're never going to be able to go and jack one in the moment and be able to execute.
I have thought that for a very long time. Here's my counterpoint to that. I was scouting elk in somewhere where there was some marginal, grizzly bear activity, and I wasn't super worried about it, but it's not really here nor there. I was coming around this trail, and it was one of those trails that went around a shed-sized boulder, but this boulder was way out into the trail, so it made this kind of really tight hairpin, right? I'm talking an acute angle, of maybe 15, 20 degrees, pretty,
tight.
Yeah. And I come around and immediately I just hear this crazy loud noise and these rocks going, falling down. I look up and I see this brown thing shooting uphill. And I go, oh, it's an elk. What it was a moose calf. And this hairpin turn, this trail happens to be on this really, really, really steep angle. And I look to my right and about for me to, that terminus of maybe a little bit further than that, about me to the doorknob over there. There's a cow moose coming up right behind her calf that had just skittered up. And she gets onto the trail, in between, we are on the same path. And she looks at me like this. She goes, and gives me the side eye thing. I just see her ears flat and I go, oh no. And I jump back and I pull that thing out of my holster, and I had that racked as it was coming out. So I kind of like, I don't know, I like kind of like jammed it in, and in pushing down on that holster, I like popped one in the chamber. I had done that fast. I didn't even think about it. But every time I'd shot that thing, like that's how I like practiced with it. So it was just kind of like, again, I wasn't thinking about getting one in the pipe. I was thinking like, oh, it's like your brain goes, this is how you take it out of the holster. So if you can take it out of the holster, then you can also do this move, because now you've ingrained that into the process. And so ever since then, I've been like kind of like doubly confident. I've been like, yeah, okay, well, you know, I don't know. I think that this is probably like a pretty good way to do it.
Well, if you practice that way, then I think it's your thing.
That's what it comes down to. Whatever you're most comfortable with,
Yep.
and what you practice with is what you should do.
I agree 100%.
Have you ever been in a position where you thought, I might shoot this bear? I might be having to shoot this bear
With a firearm?
Yeah.
No, there's been times that I've had a bears being weird around my camp, relentless, where I thought, okay, the bear is obviously like interested in more than just sniffing around the camp. Where I was glad I had a firearm, but I never thought I was actually going to have to engage the bear with it.
Okay.
But I was glad to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you're on team bear spray versus a firearm in almost 95% of situations.
Yeah, I am. But I think, you know, ultimately it's just like what he just said. It's just, you got to have the tool that you're the most confident with and that you're going to be the most versed practice with. That's what's going to save your butt, because it's going to happen. I mean, statistically less than 3 seconds, and you're going to be jacked up on adrenaline, and you're going to be in panic mode, and you got to be able to execute quick. And so you got to use whatever is going to work.
What do you do if you are on a camping trip with your family or your buddies, and you come to the realization that not only are there bears in the area, but maybe it's starting to get dark, and you see like, you know, a bear cross like a meadow relatively close to you, and all of a sudden like there are signs that there's a bear who is hip to your camp and is interested.
Yeah. What I do, I mean, what I would do and what I would recommend people to do is two different things probably, but,
what would you, let's just go with what you would recommend people do.
I mean, obviously if that bear is interested in your camp, it's interested in your food.
Yeah.
So don't have your food in the tent when you're sleeping. Try to put it in a place where the bear doesn't know access to it.
What about things like dip or toothpaste?
Everything. Take everything that has a scent or any caloric value and put it somewhere the bear can't get and away from you.
Is there something surprising that you can think of that people might, like, for instance, maybe like a fire starter or some?
Oh, I'll tell you one thing that bears love, and I can't figure out why, is white gas.
Really?
They love it.
Huh.
Yeah, when the bear gets into a camp, if they have especially liquid white gas, bear will go and drink it. I don't know why. They get right after it. And they love coffee too. They just love to get in the coffee, and they don't eat the coffee; they just roll in it. But it's a attractant for sure.
Okay, so keep the food away and keep anything with any sort of scent, even something that you would not conceptualize as food, such as white gas.
Yeah, white gas, toothpaste, like I said, it's a good one.
Wet wipes.
Wet wipes if they got
The floral,
yeah, put it away. I mean, I think that anything like that, the human body odor itself is not going to be an attractant unless that bear's really up to no good. So just keep those things separated. And they recommend 100 yards away from the camp, and I think that's a safe bet. A lot of time you don't have the ability to that, so you have a good tree somewhere. Just get it to that good tree and get it up high and out of the reach of the bear.
What do you think about people who go in wearing bear bells and stuff like that? Do you think that that's like a little excessive? Do you think it's like pertinent depending on where you are? Like, what are your thoughts on like preemptive, counter bear measures?
Bear bells have been proven to be not effective. In fact, they have been shown to actually attract the curiosity of bears. Like they hear this unnatural ting, ting.
Yeah, this chimey sort of thing.
And they want to go see what it is. Where the human voice, there's nothing better than that. There's no doubt to a bear when they hear the human voice what it is. So they know what it is and they're going to go the other way. So yeah, don't use your bear bells. Just if you're in that situation, be talking with people when you're going down the trail. That's enough. It really is. Yeah.
You ever sing when you're hiking, you think you might be in a berry sort of spot?
I don't.
I do all the time.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. If you're like, going into some thick timber.
Elk hunting,
Yeah, but you're going to thick timber or some blind corners, sing, man, that's great. And just pay attention to your wind. That's the other thing. It's like, if you're going into some timber and the wind's in your face and there's nothing downwind at all, then make a little bit more noise. If you're going to some open timber and you got the wind at your back, there's a good chance that bear's already gone.
Aside from, the obvious, like keeping food in your tent, what is a mistake that people make in bear country very frequently? Or what is like give me like a couple huge no-nos.
I mean, the biggest huge no-no we touched on a little bit is not having bear spray or putting it in some spot that's inaccessible. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Another big no-no too, it sounds ridiculous, but people do it all the time. When they encounter bears, people feed them sometimes. They throw food at them.
Stop it, really?
Oh yeah. That's what they think it's okay. And they throw food at them. And then that bear is like, literally like, there's the dispensary and I'm going to keep going after it. And they'll be aggressive to you. And that happens. It happens to people all the time. Tourists do it all the time.
Okay. Say you're somebody that has the food the spray in their backpack, and you are in a confrontation with a bear in such a way that you cannot get to, the spray in your backpack.
Yeah.
What do you do then? Do you make yourself big and yell? Do you run away? What is the...
No, don't run away. Don't make yourself big and yell. Again, remember that you're the threat, right? So you're just going to do that calmly. I'm going to back away and just talk softly and move back slowly.
The bear is very close to you.
Same thing. Yeah. I mean, I think if the bear, same thing, just back away really slowly. If the bear's super interested in you, I mean, holding your ground a little bit's good. But again, if you're a threat and you go, or something like that, the bear, it may trigger that bear. That may be the very thing that triggers that bear to get to you. Now, if the bear gets to you and you don't have your bear spray, it's truly playing dead's the best thing you can do.
Okay.
And so I'm going to go back to that. What I said earlier is like, you just want to go down as a turtle, cover up your head and neck. Don't move. Don't make a sound. Don't scream. Don't fight. And that bear may come up and give you a couple little test bites. And there's plenty of anecdotal stuff about this. And as long as you don't scream and don't fight, more than likely he's going to walk right away. The threat has been eliminated. The bear's not going to come over and eat you. And that's the problem. People believe that so much that bear is going to come over and eat them, that they're just fighting for their life and screaming and punching. But that you got to get in your head that 99% of the time a bear is looking at you as a threat, and you got to immediately act like a threat. You got to go in turtle mode and zip your lips and don't wiggle, and that bear's going to leave you alone. But it's so hard because they've watched The Revenant and they've watched all these other things, and they think that this bear is going to just try to eat them, and they just go into self-protection mode and they react the way that it's the very thing that kills them.
Mm.
So, okay, the difference between the types of bear attacks that you're describing and the encounter that you had with the emaciated bear, that was a different story because that bear, you could tell, was hungry and was targeting you.
Yeah.
And because he wasn't afraid of you, you made yourself big.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have any anecdotes about winter bears that are like sickly and wake up from hibernation and kind of go on the prowl a little bit?
It happens. Yeah, they're just going out looking for food.
Because that's like a particularly dangerous bear.
Yeah, or bears at night. That's the other thing that they find. If you have bears coming around your camp at night, they're coming around to your camp at night. They're looking for food. And when bears have predated on people in their camps, it's always been at night. So if you've got a bear in your camp at night, you need to be aggressive to it. You're saying if I had a bear going through my camp at night, man, that's why I wanted to have that handgun with me. If I have a bear going through camp at night, I'm going out there and actively engaging that bear. And I wouldn't tell people to do this, but I'm going to go out there. I'm going to make up its mind for it. And I'm going to paint its face orange with bear spray. That's what I'm going to do. And I've done it before. I mean, I've where I have bears where I don't know what their intentions are and they're thinking about doing something. I just make up their mind for them and walk right up to them and just let them have it. That's what I do. Yeah. And their mind's made up and they're headed for the high hills. Then I can adjust and have time to do it.
We have a handful of listener questions submitted via Instagram. You want to take some?
Lay them on me.
All right. So if you guys out there in viewer or listener land want to have your questions answered by one of our buddies here, You got to follow me on Instagram. It's Hayden_Samak. I put call outs for questions all the time. I've threatened to move this to Patreon a handful of times. I'm not sure we're going to do that yet. But yeah, you check my Instagram story all the time. I'm asking for questions about grizzly bears or space flight or, what have you. So, yep, follow along, Hayden_Samak. And let's get to some of these questions. JP1123, that's my cousin John. He wants to know any opinions on Timothy Treadwell.
Ooh, good one. Yeah, Treadwell, it was the guy, the Grizzly Man movie.
Yep.
Was him and his girlfriend were killed and eaten by a big brown bear. I never met the guy. I know how TV works and movies work, so it's hard to judge a guy based on somebody's edit.
Yeah.
Like, anybody could edit our life story and make us all look crazy.
Oh, we're going to make you look like a psychopath.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. But it's, one thing is the guy did live with those bears for 14 years. I've been in that place 1,000 times.
You up in Katmai.
Katmai, yeah. And some of the things he did were probably not as crazy as people think because those bears are so forgiving. He certainly didn't create the bear that ate him. A lot of people say that. But what did happen is that he was there in October when bears are trying to get fat for the winter. He encountered a bear that was desperate, similar to the story I told earlier. And he didn't have bear spray, and he didn't have electric fence around his tent. He wanted to live on even ground with those animals. And we can't. We have to utilize our human brain to have the tools like bear spray and electric fences to deter those bears. And so in the whole grand scheme of things is that bear was hungry. Those people were there. They had no way to protect themselves, and nature happened. Yeah. And it would have happened to anybody. It would happen to me. It would happen to the greatest grizzly bear expert in the world if he didn't have those tools. He didn't create that bear. That bear was just desperate, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Do you have any sort of, knowing that he made like kind of a critical mistake and it was something of his own doing, do you have like sympathy for that? Or
I've listened to him talk a bunch of times in just recordings, and I know that he in some way kind of wanted to go out that way. I mean, part of the reason why he stopped carrying bear spray and having electric fences is that he wanted to live in nature 100%. And he knew the risk of that was you can die in nature 100%. And he died in nature.
Why do you think somebody looks at a guy like Timothy Treadwell and goes, yeah, man, play stupid games, win stupid prizes? Alex Honnold free solos El Cap, and everybody's like, this is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. It is equally insane.
It's insane. Yeah,
Except I guess there are like some sort of, like theoretically, right? Aside from a handhold breaking, Alex Honnold was in control of that situation, depending on like, his skill level. And you can't really say the same thing about a wild animal, but in certain ways, maybe you could.
You can, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's very similar. I mean, you're out there interacting with these animals, especially if you did it as long as he did. It's all calculated risk. And a lot of us are assessing risk takers. All of us are. It may look super scary to somebody who has no idea about what you're doing. Like you said, Alex Honnold's a great example. You're a climber. You understand actually what the risk is, right? I'm not a climber. I watch it. It gives me anxiety watching it. But you understand actually what's happening there. And
when they talk about this in the movie, and we've talked about this in the podcast, when you understand what's happening, it actually makes it about 1,000 times worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like what he's doing is insane.
Yeah, it's insane. And I think that, when people see, even me and you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see me very close to big brown bears. And I do flying to that place on a float plane is way scarier and crazier than being around those bears. Because they are relatively predictable to me because I understand their body language and stuff. Do I realize that at any given time that could switch? Definitely. Am I prepared to defend myself if it does? Definitely. Do I have plan A, B, and C in place? And is that always in the back of my mind? Definitely. So the risk comes down a fair amount. Is it not risky? No, it's totally risky. Do I love that at some level? Definitely. Is that why I'm out there, to tell those stories and to actually put myself in those situations? Yes. That's what I do. That's what I'm good at. I'm not good at anything else. Could I be Timothy Treadwell someday? Could you be reading about me in the headlines? Maybe.
Why do you think people are so unsympathetic to him, though? I mean, like, very rarely do you find somebody talking about Timothy Treadwell that isn't like, yeah, dude's a fucking dummy.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it has a lot to do with how that they edited that movie. I mean, they really picked the crazy of him. And I think people just they're just so detached from the reality of that scenario.
What's your alternate take on it?
Meaning, like
it seems like you have reason to believe that, again, that it are you coming from the point of view that perhaps it's just like that you would expect them to try and stir up controversy in a movie like that for the sake of, you know, getting eyes on it? Or do you have like some, you know, whether it's some people who knew him or like a park ranger, like, I don't know what, like some evidence to the contrary that he really wasn't, you know.
I know so many people that knew him. The pilot that flew him in there that's in the movie, I'm friends with that pilot. I fly into that same spot with that same pilot. Everybody loved him.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They loved him. Said he's one of the most gentle guys. His heart was in the right place. He just had some bad luck. I mean, that's exactly how the people that knew him say that.
I think the other thing, too, is, you know, I think that there is I don't really know like a good way to say it, so I'm just going to say it. I think like him being kind of like effeminate in like some of his things. I think people, you know, thought that he was an odd duck and just didn't like that.
Oh, 100%. Like, I think there's a fair amount of people that look at this guy from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Actor, right? A little effeminate, acts a little fruity. I mean, for lack of a better term. And they're going to think everything he does is crazy.
Yeah.
No matter what it was.
Okay. I think that is a great button on Timothy Treadwell. Now, I don't know if somebody knows you and is asking this.
Probably.
B_Lewis_13 says, did you used to have a pet Wolverine? Tell me about him.
Oh, yeah. It's Braden Lewis. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good guy.
What's up, Braden?
Yeah, Braden's a good guy. I did have a pet Wolverine.
Tell me about him. In the words of Braden Lewis.
He's in Boise. Yeah, he's a kid. Actually, I mean, the truth is, I was in a long relationship with his mom, and so I was kind of like a dad number 2 for a while with that kid. Yeah, good kid, filmmaker, loves the outdoors.
Cool.
Yeah, still connected to him.
Nice.
Yeah. So pre-Brutus, like when I was 20, again bouncing in and out of like wildlife parks, I worked with this guy who had Wolverines, and there was like these little Wolverines kits that were born at this place. And my job as a 20-year-old was to like bottle feed and hang out and play with these things. And yeah, several of them actually. So I got to do that for 2 years on and off, play with Wolverines. Crazy cool animal. Same thing. Terrible reputation that doesn't match what they are. I mean, are they capable of fighting a grizzly bear and a pack of wolves? Yes. Do they do that all the time? Heck no. They're super shy. I think a lot what happened is that they were really good at like raiding trappers' caches back in the day.
Uh-huh.
So they were just demonized. And I think through that demonization, they just earned this massive like reputation of being like an animal that we're just going to come and try to rip your throat out. But the truth is, I've filmed Wolverines in the wild, super social with each other, which is crazy. Super playful and super shy, and only are confrontational if they're forced to be. And if they're forced to be, they can do some damage. Yeah. But as having a connection to one and playing with them, I play with them just like you play with your dog.
Really?
Oh yeah. They love it. They just play the same way. Roll around, nibble on you, bite a little harder than your dog might, but yeah, super fun, super smart too, trainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
What?
I've got some pictures. I'll send some pictures you can add to me with a Wolverine on my shoulder.
Okay, perfect. Wow, I
had
no idea.
Young, more handsome me with a Wolverine on my shoulder.
I don't know how to say this. I'm going to say Cole Pleasure Sean. I have no idea what that's supposed to be, man. I apologize. Your name is up there next to our icon thing. What is the average life of grizzly bears in the wild? And previously in the conversation, you mentioned that in captivity, they can live up to 40 years.
Yeah. In fact, the oldest bear in captivity lived to be 52.
Wow.
Very old. In the wild, you know, like we were talking about, 399 was in 28. That's an old bear. They can get in their 30s, but very rarely. I'd say an old bear, anything over 20. Yeah. But just think about that. One thing cool about that question is that here you have an animal, and there's not very many animals that can live in the wild for 20 years. And so you think about the collective wisdom that they have, and and often sows are teaching their cubs some of that stuff. So cool. I mean, that's an animal that's so dialed in its surroundings. 20 years of walking around the wild.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that. Like, I of course have thought like, there were these, like mama bear teaches the baby bear like this, but it's, having enough litters and having throwing enough cubs and having like enough time to, kind of work with those things that like they could get more effective and better at it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's a collective wisdom. And especially when you watch a bear, they will go like from one river valley, June 15th, and then it comes July 15th. And then they'll just take off like they have a calendar, and they'll go clean across the ecosystem, and they'll be up on a top of a mountain looking for moths. And it's not that they smelled them. It's that their mother taught them on this day, you need to go to that mountain range and look for moths up in those rocks. And this is how you do it. You got to pick these rocks up in this certain little spot, and there's going to be a bunch of calories underneath there. And they know that. They learned that from their mom. And then they teach their cubs that. And as things change, they adapt and they go. So there's this collective wisdom. It's so cool.
That's crazy interesting. What is like the lead cause of like mortality amongst grizzly bears?
People right now
Really?
In the ecosystem. Yeah. I mean, early on, cubs will be killed by other grizzly bears or packs of wolves. But if they get beyond that, it's conflict with humans.
Really?
Yep. I think in every year in the ecosystem, there's at least, I think last year was 63 bears were removed or killed, euthanized. Huge percentage. Yeah. And then, or else they die of old age.
Yeah, that's really what happens. They just die of old age. They get brittle and.
One of my favorite stories, man. Bear digs its den. A grizzly bear digs its den more often than not. Every year, a new den. And they do it up about 9,000, 10,000 feet on north slopes. On average, they like to do north slope because it gets covered up with a lot of snow. And every bear was born in the den. They're born in January, February, and they're born in that den. And you see this little bear's born in the den, and it's in there for months, like 2 or 3 months. And it thinks this is its life when it's first born. Like, this is what the world is, dark. And I'm going to cuddle up to mom and play with my siblings in there, whatever. And then one day mom just opens the door, right? And think of the sensory overload of this little bear that's been alive for 3 months, pokes his head out of the door and just goes, what the, like, this is my life, right? But where I was getting is that I've found in my life, and I'm out there, like I said, more than most, 2 dead bears ever. And the reason why is because when a bear gets old enough to die, it goes into the den not willing or not able to survive the winter. It doesn't have enough fat, and it dies in that den. So when you look at the mountains out here in grizzly bear country, there's a bunch of bear graves up there. They just die in the same place where they were born. That thing caves in, and there's just a bunch of bears dead up on the mountainside. It's so cool to think about.
That is really cool to think about.
Yeah, they born in the mountain, they go back to the mountain.
That is really cool to think about.
Yeah.
Well, we have some more questions, but dude, I'm gonna end it there. That is a killer. That is a killer closeout. This camera right here, if you want to tell people where they can find you, YouTube, all that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to learn a lot about bears and see interactions like I'm talking about, different adventures all over the world and wild places with wild things, Endless Venture on YouTube. And then my Instagram is Grizzly Guy.
I'm super excited. I've watched some of it. It's great. We're going to have all the links down in the description. Thank you so much for coming out, dude. I mean, I guess it's not that far away for you, but it was still a little bit of a drive. So I appreciate you taking the time this afternoon and hanging out with us, man.
It's been fun, man. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Casey Anderson, you can find him on YouTube again. All the links in the description. And we'll see you guys next time. Yeah?
Yep.
Cool. Everybody, thanks for watching this episode of the Backcountry Manifesto podcast. If you want more Backcountry Manifesto, go ahead and check out one of these links right here. And make sure to share the podcast with your friends, comment, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It really helps us out. Again, thank you very much for watching. Now go check out one of these things. I like this one. This one was a good episode, I promise.